Chapter 994. Oh, that's right. Everyone, if you encounter any danger or suspicious people, remember to inform me at any time. Ling Xiao took a deep look at Shi Hao Yin on the ground. Then, he turned to the crowd and said with a gentle expression, Shi Hao Yin, listen to this name. Isn't he a destined one? Is it appropriate? As for why he didn't have any luck, Ling Xiao guessed that it was probably because he wasn't miserable enough. Therefore, Ling Xiao forced him to suffer a tragedy in order to help him awaken more powerful talents and opportunities. He wanted to urge him to become a destined one. Do you still think that I, Ling Xiao, am cruel? Of course, even if Shi Hao Yin didn't awaken any other golden fingers in the end, he was still alive. It was a kind of deterrence that Ling Xiao had for the world. Young Master is really chivalrous. He is a role model for our generation. Yes, to be born in the same era as Master Ling Xiao is our sorrow and also our honor. Too small. Your vision is too small. Master Ling Xiao is the opportunity for the human race to prosper. Everyone exclaimed. However, it made Qin Chen's expression even more gloomy and sinister. If he didn't have enough understanding of Ji Ying, Ji Hanyu, and the others, Ling Xiao's righteousness made him feel extreme admiration. However, the more it was like this, the more fear he felt in his heart. This was a devil who truly fooled the common people and played them in the palm of his hand. Fortunately, the relationship between Gu Chaoci and Ling Xiao wasn't as close as he thought. Therefore, the moonless and windy night was the best time to kill. Young Master, the Shi family is a little special. Although I don't know Shi Hao Yin, it is said that this family had an ancestor who was once the most powerful person in the human race. He was shockingly talented and dominated his generation. In the end, he disappeared without a trace. In a small courtyard in the northern part of the city, the green bamboo was lush and verdant. Ling Xiao was lying on a wooden chair and looking at the afterglow of the setting sun. Beside him, Yi Qingchan's expression was a little serious. She indeed didn't recognize Shi Hao Yin, but this long life Shi family's Yi Qingchan did. It was rumored that the Shi family's ancestor was born with a bone of supremacy in his body. He should have been able to walk in the heavens and stand at the top of the world. However, this Shi family's ancestor's life was full of obstacles and difficulties. In the end, he became an emperor and dominated the entire era. Even the Shi family did not know where he was. However, his strength was well known to the entire human race. I know. Ling Xiao nodded indifferently, but there wasn't the slightest ripple on his face. How could he, the reincarnation of the sky demon, be afraid of an ancestor of the Shi family who had disappeared? Even if that person was modeled after the great emperor of the primordial era, Ling Xiao would not be intimidated. Young Master, Shi Hao Yin, if the Shi family had any self-awareness, they wouldn't have made an enemy of me and the Ling people because of this. Ling Xiao stretched his muscles and got up to look at the crescent moon in the sky. It's getting dark. Young Master, are you going out? Of course. Since the Supreme Secret Territory hasn't opened yet, I have to make some preparations. Ling Xiao smiled faintly and disappeared from where he stood. At the same time, in the courtyard where Gu Chaoci was staying, a dark shadow snuck into her room. Who is it? Gu Chaoci, who originally had her eyes closed, suddenly opened them. However, before she could resist, a shadow pounced on her and pressed her against the bed. Immediately after, a pair of thin lips covered her mouth, blocking the exclamation that was about to come out of her mouth. Gu Chaoci's beautiful eyes widened. However, when she saw the graceful face in front of her, her originally tense body inexplicably relaxed. With Ling Xiao's mastery of time and space, as well as his divine soul of the Saint Realm, even if Gu Chaoci was at her peak, she would not be able to sense his presence, let alone the weakened Gu Chaoci. Woo-woo. Gu Chaoci struggled with all her might and fiercely pushed Ling Xiao away. Her beautiful face was flushed red and became even more alluring in the darkness. Wife, You didn't really come all the way here for the fortune in the Supreme Secret Territory's ruins, did you? Ling Xiao smiled. When he saw Gu Chaoxiai's embarrassed and angry look, his heart immediately heated up. It's not because of you. Gu Chaoxiai spat and tidied her hair. She waved her jade-like hand, and the room immediately lit up with layers of light. So my wife has a place to stay. I was wondering why you didn't stay with me. Ling Xiao pushed open the window and looked at the elegantly decorated small courtyard. Could it be that some admirer prepared this for you? Ling People's young master is so narrow-minded. Aren't you afraid of being laughed at if word gets out? Gu Chaoxiai frowned and coldly glanced at Ling Xiao. However, she was inexplicably puzzled. The sky demon also had such a narrow-minded side. Joke? I'll kill whoever laughs at me. That way, no one will dare to laugh at me. Ling Xiao smiled indifferently, while Gu Chaoxiai's face revealed an expression of understanding. Gu Chaoxiai. What? Actually, you can be quite cute sometimes. Hearing this, Gu Chaoxiai was stunned and her face turned even redder. Speak. Why did you come to find me in the middle of the night? I came to find my fiancée in the middle of the night. What else could there be? Ling Xiao smiled evilly. Gu Chaoxiai had already retreated to the side with a guarded expression. Ling Xiao, I advise you. If we fight, you may not be my match. Is that so? Wife, what do you think I've been doing for the past 3 years? Ling Xiao nodded slightly. Divine inscriptions suddenly flashed in his eyes. His originally playful and frivolous face suddenly turned solemn and weathered. What are you doing? With Gu Chaoxiai's temperament, she would not be curious about other people's pasts. The path to immortality was vast. Everyone was working hard to cultivate, but they were also shackled by all kinds of restrictions. Pain and humiliation were meaningless in the first place. However, looking at Ling Xiao's expression, Gu Chaoxiai suddenly felt a pang of heartache. She had almost forgotten that this youth was only in his 20s. However, he already had the ability to crush the younger generation in Qingcang. That's right. The path to immortality was vast. If one wanted to grow faster, they could only experience more pain and suffering than others. There was no such thing as power that came out of nowhere. Even if the Sky Demon's talent was eternal, Ling Xiao could only imagine what he had gone through to reach his current level of strength in the past 3 years. Killing, a struggle in the dark without daylight. Only fresh blood was the fastest way for a person to grow. From the moment you left, I swore that the next time I see you, I will never let you stand in front of me again. No matter what I face, no matter how dangerous it is. Because losing you is worse than death. Ling Xiao's tone was calm, as if he was talking about something insignificant. However, the calmer he was, the more shocked and depressed Gu Chaoxiai became. Beep. The destined girl has changed her mind. Congratulations to the host for gaining 2,000 luck points and 20,000 villain points. Gu Chaoxiai was stunned for a long time. Her beautiful eyes stared at the calm and gentle face in front of her. At this moment, she was clearly a little confused. If he was not the Sky Demon, perhaps Gu Chaoxiai would not be so cautious. However, according to the rumors, the Sky Demon was the embodiment of darkness and the source of destruction. He had no feelings at all. She was not afraid of dying. She was more afraid of losing something after obtaining it, or rather, being deceived. Is that so? In the end, Gu Chaoxiai looked away and pretended to be calm. However, she could not calm down. Even if it was the Sky Demon, if it was only for her, so what if he was kind or slaughtered the entire world? Time will probably prove everything. Ling Xiao smiled, especially when Gu Chaoxiai's luck points suddenly increased to 80,000. His guess was confirmed. It seemed that this destined girl's secret was indeed related to him. Chapter 995. Sure Hao Ian has an elder brother, Sure Yi, who is a quasi-sequence expert in Qingcang. He is very scheming. Although he may not be your opponent, you still have to be careful. Gu Chaoxiai sat in front of the table, poured a cup of tea, and said softly, also, this sovereign secret realm may not be as simple as you think. Ling Xiao raised his eyebrows slightly, but he was a little emotional. Gu Chaoxiai looked cold, but now it seemed that she was secretly worried about him. I have checked the ancient books. The most famous sovereign who died in this place was a heavenly sovereign. It is said that this person is an expert from the reincarnation divine abode and is extremely mysterious. Gu Chaoxiai's tone was indifferent, but Ling Zhao's face was quietly stern. An expert from the reincarnation divine abode? In that case, Qin Shun might not be the only gain of this trip. Interesting. According to the standard routine of the Chosen One, this tomb of the reincarnation divine abode expert was likely to be an exclusive copy of a certain person of destiny. Now, Ling Xiao already had 2 reincarnation marks in his hands. According to Bai Ling, there were a total of 3 marks. Only by collecting all 3 marks could he possibly find the real sect of the reincarnation divine abode. All of a sudden, Ling Xiao seemed to be in deep thought. There were still 100 days before the Tao Celestial Saints lecture. At that time, all the geniuses would gather at the Tao Tian Academy. No matter what realm the owner of the academy was in, he was probably not someone Ling Xiao could deal with. However, since it was a lecture, he would definitely be distracted. This might be the only chance in 100 years that Ling Xiao could plot for the demonic bone. It's late, I want to rest. Gu Chaoxiai put down the teacup and said in a clear voice, "No hurry, there will be a good show tonight. Wife, rest assured and wait." However, at this time, Ling Xiao only shook his head and smiled. He looked up at the bright moon in the sky, as if he was waiting for something. Overlapping shadow had already sent news that Qin Shun had secretly investigated Gu Chaoxiai's residence today. It was obvious that the Chosen One was about to make a move. Meanwhile, Void Dao Sect, Back Mountain. Suddenly, there was a buzzing sound that spread for thousands of miles. A ray of multicolored light shot into the sky, illuminating the 9 heavens and 10 earths. Boundless celestial music rang out, and the Tao patterns transformed into a myriad of strange phenomena. Faintly, it seemed as if a celestial figure was stepping down from the sky, and it transformed into a strand of clear light that descended leisurely. At this moment, tens of thousands of spiritual treasures in the Void Dao sect buzzed at the same time and uncontrollably released spiritual light. What's going on? Could it be that the Sovereign's relic has appeared? That can't be right. Didn't Sectmaster say that it would take at least 3 more days? What's going on? My natal spiritual treasure is out of control. It's going to collapse. Buzz. At this moment, in an ordinary disciples' hall on the mountain, a young man in white suddenly opened his eyes. There was a look of shock and excitement on his face. He held an ancient stone in his hand. There seemed to be divine light blooming on it, and it was filled with an indescribably mysterious aura. The golden immortal radiance that descended from the heavens happened to shine on his body without deviating from its original position. A gate to the heavenly abode appeared in the void above the young man's head. There seemed to be countless spiritual treasures displayed in it. The number was so dense that it was terrifying. I've finally cultivated the jade, golden bone body. It's my fault that my talent is too poor. It took me 500 years to enter the honorable realm and break the seal on this stone. The senior who left the inheritance must have already entered the heavenly sovereign realm when he was alive. Otherwise, it would be impossible for him to have such a thorough understanding of the great Tao. The young man muttered to himself and looked up at the distant sky. According to what this senior said, he left the imprint and inheritance to wait for the fated person. In the final battle, he would most likely die in the void zone. Could it be that the sovereign's relic is where he died? Reincarnation, heavenly abode? Isn't that the name of an ancient force? Why did the senior say that only by obtaining the reincarnation, heavenly abode, can I open the real myriad weapon Tao scripture? Forget it. The myriad weapon Tao scripture is still very far away from me. Now that I've cultivated the jade golden bone body according to the method and the imprint, with my current physical strength, I don't have to worry about ordinary honorable realm experts. However, where are the remaining 2 imprints? Thinking of this, the young man sighed. At this moment, there was a sudden rush of wind outside the hall. Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. The young man's expression turned serious. He put away the stone in his hand and pretended to be asleep. Junior brother Zhao, are you saying that the immortal light just now fell in this side hall? F***CK. Are you saying that Yang Yuan is the one who is protected by the immortal? Puffed. Are you kidding me? It took him 300 years to enter the inner sect. He has just entered the honorable realm after 500 years. How can he be protected by the immortal? Is that immortal blind? The group of nothingness sect disciples kicked open the door while cursing. When they saw Yang Yuan, who had suddenly woken up from the bed, their eyes were filled with ridicule. Brother Yang, that's right. According to Yang Yuan's age, he was actually older than these disciples. Although the process of him entering the inner sect was bumpy, he was older. Junior brother Chun, junior brother Zhao, junior brother Qian, it's so late. Why are you here? Yang Yuan's eyes were drowsy as he asked with a puzzled expression. We're here to see if senior brother can adapt to such a big hall after sleeping. The three of them looked at each other with ridicule in their eyes. Before Yang Yuan stepped into the honorable realm, he had been guarding the trial hall at the foot of the mountain as an outer sect disciple. It wasn't that Yang Yuan's cultivation was too low and wasn't qualified to enter the inner sect, but he was too old and had a poor foundation. He was famous for being trash in the nothingness sect. It was even to the extent, before he stepped into the honorable realm and passed the trial, he lost 9,103 battles successively, and most of them were to disciples with lower cultivations than him. If it wasn't for this bastard suddenly stepping into the honorable realm through some sort of dog's hit luck, he probably wouldn't have the chance to enter the inner sect in his lifetime. Thank you for your trouble, junior brothers. I slept very soundly here. Yang Yuan frowned slightly, but his tone didn't change in the slightest. He was a young man from a mountain village. He had no background or natural talent, and he'd stepped into the path of immortality by chance. Now that he'd entered the inner sect with great difficulty, he naturally didn't dare casually offend others. But these three junior brothers before him were disciples of the same elder of the nothingness Tao sect, yet they just happened to like looking for trouble with him. It was truly infuriating. It's good that you're safe. In that case, senior brother, you can continue sleeping and continue dreaming. The three disciples of the nothingness Tao sect roared with laughter, and then they turned around and intended to leave. Junior brother Zhao. But right at this moment, the usually taciturn Yang Yuan suddenly opened his mouth and called out to the three of them. The three of them raised their eyebrows slightly and turned to look at the honest-looking young man in surprise. Brother Yang, is there anything else? Junior brother, I've just entered the inner sect, so I don't know much about the sect. But I heard that a supreme secret realm has appeared in the nothingness region recently. I wonder which senior brother the sect is sending to gain experience? Yang Yuan smiled humbly, but the three of them had a trace of mockery in their eyes. Brother Yang, don't tell me you're planning to go to that secret realm to look for treasures? Chapter 996. Didn't I just step into the honorable realm? I want to go out and train. Junior brothers, I wonder which senior brother of the Void Dao sect will be coming down this time? Yang Yuan had a warm smile on his face. He was not the least bit annoyed by the three's arrogance. In the past 300 years, he had been tired of hearing mockery in the Void Dao sect. That's right, his talent was terrible. His understanding of Dao was far from other senior brothers and junior brothers. But now, he had cultivated the jade bone golden body that the heavenly supreme senior had mentioned according to the inheritance in the imprint. Such a divine body would be able to sense and integrate spirit chi more than 100 times faster than before. Moreover, this body alone was enough for him to crush people in the same realm. Yang Yuan believed that it wouldn't be long before he would be able to shock the entire Nihility Dao sect. But before that, he had to go to the sovereign secret realm. He felt that the appearance of the secret realm was too similar to the time when he had cultivated the jade bone golden body. Could it be that this secret realm was really the inheritance that the senior had specially prepared for me? Which senior brother did not come down the mountain? The three of them sneered. The one who came down is senior sister Qi Lanhua. So it's junior sister Qi. Yang Yuan's eyes narrowed. He had heard of this junior sister's reputation. She was the eldest grandson of a great elder. She was very talented and proud. It seemed that he could only sneak out and see if there was a chance to enter the secret realm. But senior sister Chi contradicted the young master of the Ling people in Rock Cliff City. Elder Chi broke her arm and brought her back. Disciple Zhao's expression became more and more playful. Brother Yang, don't tell me you don't know the Ling people. How about it? Do you still want to go and train? The young master of the Ling people? He broke her arm and brought her back? Yang Yuan frowned. Elder Chi broke her arm just because she contradicted the young master? Ling people were indeed arrogant and domineering. So, no one from the Void Dao sect is going to the secret realm now? Senior brother, is there something wrong with your brain? I've been talking for so long. Don't you understand? Disciple Zhao shook his head and coldly glanced at Yang Yuan before turning around and walking out of the hall. My Nihility Dao sect has offended the Ling people. Who would dare to come down the mountain to compete for the treasure? Brother Yang, if you have the guts to come down a mountain, I will be the first to cheer for you. Ah! The remaining two disciples of the Nihility Dao sect instantly laughed loudly before turning around and walking out of the hall. As far as the three of them were concerned, Yang Yuan was a piece of trash. Not to mention Master Ling Xiao, any exalted realm cultivator in the Nihility Dao sect could crush him to death. Going down the mountain to compete for treasures? Pucci, senior brother, don't be scared to the point of peeing your pants. Looking at the three people walking away, the expression on Yang Yuan's face turned solemn. Ling people's young master, to him, was like a lofty mountain. The difference between the two of them was like the difference between heaven and earth. But in this path of immortality, there were countless people who were born noble. However, looking at the long river of time, how many of those who truly stood tall in the sky were born noble? No, I must go to this secret realm. As long as I can find the three imprints as soon as possible, I might be able to find the reincarnation heavenly abode and open the myriad weapons Tao scripture as soon as possible. Yang Yuan's eyes were cold as he secretly made a decision in his heart. It's already late today. Moreover, the phenomenon of heaven and earth was caused by the completion of the golden body. If I go look for the sect master now, it will most likely attract suspicion. Tomorrow. In the end, Yang Yuan suppressed the throbbing in his heart and sat cross-legged on the bed again. He took out the reincarnation imprint and immersed himself in cultivation. Darkness surged over, but Yang Yuan's body gradually emitted a dazzling golden light. Under the layers of golden light, a jade-white bone became increasingly clear. The vast power evolved into endless phenomena, as if an immortal figure had descended from the heavens and earth, standing tall in the sky. In Rock Cliff City, the bright moon hung high in the sky. The moonlight poured down, rendering the entire ancient city silvery white. At this time, in the dark of the pavilion, a black-clothed figure came in the night, wandering around the residences of the descendants of the ancient clans and the disciples of the immortal sections. Faintly, a faint smell of blood permeated the air, casting a layer of red on the clear moon. Clang, clang, clang. It was not until the black-clothed figure stopped in front of a courtyard that he reached out and knocked on the courtyard door. Who is it? The takeout you ordered is here. The black-clothed figure's lips curled into a smile. The moonlight shone on his immortal-like handsome face, making him look even more ethereal and otherworldly. Takeout? In the courtyard, Lin Shun frowned slightly. The starlight around his body bloomed leisurely, as if it was connected to the sea of stars, revealing a continuous and endless power. However, at this time, his eyes flashed with a trace of coldness. The sacred star Constitution borrowed the power of the stars to cultivate. The more starry the night, the stronger Lin Shun's strength became. In this rock cliff ancient city, the only people who could make him feel wary were Ling Xiao and Gu Chaoxiai. However, Lin Shun was confident that even if the two of them wanted to kill him at night, it would be impossible. Boom! The courtyard door opened. Lin Shun's body was surrounded by starlight, and his expression was somewhat guarded. Although Ling Xiao had stolen the limelight of all the ancient clan's prodigies today, what he said was not completely unreasonable. Since the sky demon had already appeared and forcefully snatched the body of the Foliace's ancestor, he might covet this supreme secret realm. However, when Lin Shun saw the handsome and gentle face in front of him, his expression froze. Master Ling Xiao, let's talk inside. Ling Xiao's eyes were serious as he stepped into the courtyard first. Suddenly, a ray of golden light bloomed in his hand, enveloping the entire courtyard. When he approached Lin Shun's residence, he felt a layer of starlight enveloping the void. This power was extremely mysterious. It borrowed the endless starlight to form a boundary. Its power was boundless and endless, and it could block all prying eyes and also be used for defense. However, with Ling Xiao's strength, if he wanted to forcefully break this boundary, it would only be a matter of using a boundary-breaking talisman. However, if he did that, Lin Shun would definitely be on guard. Today's gathering of prodigies, everyone saw Lin Shun and Qin Shun sitting together and instinctively thought that the two of them were related. However, at the last moment, the two of them seemed to have exposed their conflict and parted on bad terms. What Ling Xiao wanted to do tonight was to create a false impression for everyone in Rock Cliff City that the person who killed Lin Shun was someone he knew. Otherwise, look, the starlight boundary above the courtyard did not dissipate, and no one felt a trace of spiritual energy fluctuation, but Lin Shun was dead. And now, in Rock Cliff City, besides Qin Shun, there seemed to be no one who had interacted with this prodigy of the Lin family. When the time came, as long as someone took advantage of the situation, everyone's attention would be on Qin Shun. You think that's the end? What a joke. After all, Qin Shun had eyes and mouth and mouth. He could explain himself, so Ling Xiao specially made a trip to Gu Chaoxiai's residence to wait for him. When he appeared to take revenge, this game of chess would officially begin. Master Ling Xiao, what is the meaning of this? Lin Shun's eyes narrowed, especially when he felt a trace of sealing power in the golden light. For some reason, he felt uneasy. Chapter 997. Oh, I was afraid that you would resist later, so I made some preparations in advance. Ling Xiao smiled gently, but Lin Shun's expression suddenly changed. Master Ling Xiao, what do you mean? Could it be that young lord has come here tonight to kill me? Otherwise, why do you think I came here in the middle of the night? To play a game? Before Ling Xiao finished speaking, his palms suddenly pressed out, as if it was the hand of a demon god. Vast celestial radiance began to bloom. At this moment, Lin Shun only felt a majestic heavenly might descend from the sky, firmly imprisoning his body. Even the space and time in the courtyard suddenly froze the moment Ling Xiao's palm pressed out. How is this possible? Lin Shun's eyes widened. He had seen the scene of Ling Xiao crushing Shi Haoyan today. However, what Ling Xiao displayed at that time was the ultimate physical strength. At this moment, looking at the endless overlapping Dao patterns and traces of order in the palm print, Lin Shun's Dao heart almost collapsed. It turned out that the young master of the Ling people had been hiding his strength all along. Ling Xiao, you're shameless. That day, the Taigu Ling people and the Realm Lord Palace had spoken at the same time, demanding that the various human forces in the Azure Sky world not interfere with the young generation's conquest of the Sky Demon. Therefore, when the monstrous geniuses of the everlasting families went out, they did not have any protectors behind them at all, fearing that they would be targeted by the two great forces. However, just because others did not bring their protectors, it did not mean that Ling Xiao did not bring one. With his cultivation of an 8th Great Earth Sovereign, even ordinary heavenly sovereigns would find it difficult to detect his aura. If Lin Shun was not a child of destiny, Ling Xiao would not have bothered to do it himself. Stellar Battle Body. Meteor Finger. Lin Shun shouted angrily, and the panic in his eyes suddenly disappeared. Instead, it was replaced by an extremely dazzling starlight. At this moment, every inch of his skin seemed to be enveloped by starlight. Seven-colored luster flickered on the finger that appeared horizontally. It was as if a meteor had fallen from the sky. It merged with the thousands of stars in the night sky, forming a sea of stars and a curtain of meteor showers. The void instantly shattered under that finger, and the world suddenly lit up. If it weren't for the two barriers above the courtyard, this fluctuation alone would have been enough to attract countless prying eyes. Boom! The moment the two attacks collided, the expression on Lin Shun's face froze. Crack! At this moment, he could feel a huge force spreading through his fingers until his entire arm was completely shattered. Only then did it slowly dissipate. Poochie! Lin Shun's figure was blasted flying for an entire 10 m before he fell to the ground, causing a dazzling trail of blood to appear, and his eyes were already filled with terror. He had used all of his strength in that finger attack. Even so, one of his arms was still easily shattered by Ling Xiao. Gulp! Suddenly, Lin Shun felt a bone-chilling chill. Until now, he still didn't understand why the young master of the Ling people wanted to kill him. However, looking at the gentle and handsome face in front of him, he only felt endless fear. It was as if behind this beautiful face was the true evil of the nine heavens. The everlasting family is nothing more than this. Ling Xiao shook his head and smiled. He suddenly clenched his fist, and a pitch-black ancient blade suddenly appeared. There was a golden line that ran through the blade from beginning to end, revealing endless sinister intent. Don't be happy too early. Lin Shun gritted his teeth and forced himself to calm down. His eyes seemed to be filled with determination. Then he raised one hand to the sky as if he was connecting with the heavens. The thousands of stars that were originally blooming in the sky suddenly lost their brilliance. At the same time, an ancient seal gradually condensed on his palm. 3,000 stars seal, suppress. Lin Shun shouted angrily, and a glaring trace of blood spilled from the corner of his mouth. Originally, this attack could only be used by someone who had mastered the stellar battle body. But now he had no way out. If he didn't fight with his life, it would be difficult for him to escape death tonight. Buzz! The entire courtyard suddenly trembled violently. Even the two barriers seemed to be unable to withstand the power of the seal and gradually showed signs of collapsing. Ling Xiao's eyes narrowed slightly, and his soul consciousness spread out. He saw a figure suddenly rise from the darkness and become one with the darkness, completely suppressing the power of the stellar seal. Guiying frowned and looked at the night sky above his head. There was also a hint of surprise in his eyes. Compared to Shi Hao Yin, this monster of the Lin family in front of him was indeed somewhat extraordinary. At the very least, the power contained in this ancient seal was enough to threaten ordinary saint stage powerhouses. Boom! Countless stars bloomed around Ling Xiao's body. They were so dense that they sealed off all his escape routes. However, at this moment, there was still no trace of panic on his face. Demonic patterns quietly flickered in his eyes. Boom, boom, boom. One after another, the roars suddenly resounded, as if countless stars had exploded at the same time. The void shattered, and Lin Shun's face was already extremely pale. Immediately, he breathed a sigh of relief and fell from the sky. He half knelt on the ground, but there was a cold smile on his face. It was obvious that Lin Shun had completely relaxed at this moment. He was confident that under the 3,000 stellar seals, even a saint stage powerhouse would not be able to escape death, let alone a young venerable stage powerhouse. Even Lin Shun had to admit that Ling Xiao's strength was enough to crush countless monsters in Qingsong. But as he said before, under the night sky and sea of stars, among his peers, even a sequence powerhouse could not be his opponent. However, just as Lin Shun took a deep breath and slowly stood up, a trace of doubt and surprise clearly appeared on his face. At this moment, he seemed to feel that this space had fallen into a strange silence. Regardless of whether it was sound or light, they were all silent at this moment. The world was eternally dark, and there was a cold and domineering demonic intent quietly enveloping the entire world. Lin Shun's expression froze. When he looked up again, he saw a pair of scarlet eyes looking down at him from within the endless darkness. There was a black moon floating in the blood-red eyes, and it was strange and demonic. In the next moment, a black light suddenly appeared and slashed at him with the power to destroy the heavens. Before Lin Shun could react, his entire body had split in the middle, and he collapsed on the ground. At the last moment of his life, this monster of the Lin clan seemed to hear a sudden rush of a bell in the distant sky. Clang, 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 clang. Sky Demon, Ling Xiao. However, in the end, he did not see the figure hidden in the darkness clearly before he completely closed his eyes. Ling Xiao descended from the sky and looked at the corpse that had lost all its vitality. He waved his hand and removed the golden barrier above his head, turned around, and walked out of the courtyard. Beep! Congratulations to the host for successfully killing the Child of Destiny. You have gained 6,000 luck points and 60,000 villain points. Beep! Congratulations to the host for obtaining an additional reward, Star Law, Star Battle Body. Beep! Congratulations to the host for obtaining an additional reward, 8th grade Divine Array, Sky Shadowing Ancient Array. Just now, Folded Shadow had sent a message that Qin Shun had arrived at Gu Chaoxiai's residence. As such, this chess game had finally reached the exciting part. Chapter 998. The Immortal Demon Ancient Bell. It's the Immortal Demon Ancient Bell. That demon has appeared. The Azure Sky realm suddenly fell into chaos. Countless ancient and powerful auras walked out of the temple and looked up at the golden pillar above their heads. At this moment, the image of a golden bell stood towering in the horizon, and it emanated dazzling divine radiance. Shuexian stood in front of the temple with his hands behind his back, looking down at the night sky. Behind him, Lu Xinghe frowned, also worried. Young Lord, that demon has appeared again. Shuexian nodded calmly, not seeming surprised at all. A sky demon in the Exalt realm would definitely think of ways to increase its cultivation. However, this time, he was unable to sense where the devil had appeared. Elder Xing, did anything major happen in the Azure Sky realm while I was in seclusion? Shuexian waved his hand, recalling the immortal demon Ancient Bell, and turned to look at Lu Xinghe. Nothing major, but Lu Xinghe sighed. Lu Xinghe sighed leisurely. He looked hesitant. It's about the young master of the Ling clan. Oh, Shuexian frowned. He only nodded when Lu Xinghe told him all about Ling Zhao's recent actions. That means this young master of the Ling people should have known Gu Chaoxiai a long time ago. From the day he saved the mortals, I knew this Ling Xiao was nothing to worry about. A person who could be controlled by emotions, no matter how talented he was nothing to worry about. At the very least, in Shuexian's opinion, if the Realm Lord Palace really fell out with the Ling people, this Gu Chaoxiai would be his way to deal with Ling Xiao. Unfortunately, even though Shuexian was unparalleled in scheming, he didn't expect that Ling Xiao had already predicted the flaw he thought he had. Moreover, with Gu Chaoxiai's luck, anyone who made an enemy of her in this realm wouldn't have a good ending. Oh, young lord, a supreme relic has appeared in the northwest void zone. It said that the young master of the Ling people has already rushed there, worried that the demon might be plotting something. Lu Xinghe seemed to have thought of something and said softly, "Oh, although this Ling Xiao is affectionate and overbearing, his mind is quite sharp." Shuexian snorted coldly, then turned around and walked into the hall. "Young master, do you want me to no need? The appearance of the sky demon will attract the attention of the various powers in the Azure continent. Why need his time?" In Rockcliff City, the lights suddenly lit up. Countless descendants of the ancient clans and immortal sect disciples soared into the air. As they looked towards the direction of the sound of the bell, fear flashed across their faces. Did the sky demon really appear? Right at this moment, an extremely shrill cry suddenly sounded from a corner of the city. Lin Shun has been killed. What? Everyone's expression changed when they heard this voice. They rushed over from all directions and appeared before Lin Shun's courtyard. At that moment, the body of the Lin clan's monster prodigy was already cold. However, what was frightening was that although there were traces of fighting in the courtyard, the astral realm that enveloped the surroundings was not broken. In other words, Lin Shen must have taken the initiative to let the killer in. Boom! Just as everyone was pondering and their eyes were filled with fear, divine light once again bloomed in Rock Cliff City. Someone is fighting. Who are you? How dare you sneak attack my fiancé, Ling Xiao? Then, an angry roar suddenly rang out, causing everyone's heart to tremble. Someone dared to attack Gu Chaoxiai. Could it be the sky demon? Ling Xiao. Qin Shin stood in the air, his eyes filled with shock. Just now, he had just snuck into Gu Chaoxiai's courtyard when he heard the bell ring in the sky. Just as he was hesitating, Ling Xiao and Gu Chaoxiai walked out of the hall and appeared in front of him. Of course, all of this was just a coincidence. In Qin Shen's eyes, it was not intentional. After all, no matter who it was, when they heard the immortal demon ancient bell ring, they would come out to see what was going on. However, he snuck out in the middle of the night, obviously harboring evil intentions. Then he was seen by Ling Xiao, and the timing of the immortal demon ancient bells ringing was extremely coincidental. Inexplicably, Qin Shin suddenly felt a chill in his heart. Don't tell me they think I'm the sky demon? That can't be. I don't have the aura of a sky demon on me. Lin Shun has been killed. The successor of the Zhang family, Zhang Qitian, has also been killed. Look, who is that black-robed figure? Damn it. In the void, Qin Shin's heart was already flustered. Then, he raised his head and looked at the two figures walking out of the pavilion, his brows tightly knitted together. Who are you? How dare you sneak attack my fiancé? Ling Zhao's cold voice instantly attracted the attention of all the geniuses in Rock Cliff City. Ling Xiao. Qin Shan gritted his teeth, but he was confused. Was the bell ringing just now a coincidence, or was it deliberately arranged by the successor of the Ling people? But how could he make the immortal demon ancient bell ring 9 times in a row? Could it be that his identity had something to do with the sky demon? Shinzi, it seems like we've been tricked. Hiromu of Gogirio's voice was low, and there was a hint of unconcealed surprise in it. Even with his experience as an immortal king, he still didn't know when exactly Qin Shun had fallen into Ling Zhao's trap. Yes, Qin Shin's expression was gloomy as he slowly clenched his fists. At this moment, he could feel that Ling Zhao's soul consciousness was firmly locked onto him. But if he escaped today, he would definitely bear the blame of being the reincarnation of the sky demon. For a moment, Qin Shun was actually hesitant. Qinzi, it'll be too late if we don't leave now. Hiromu of Gogirio's tone was hurried. He didn't believe that those ancient race disciples could stop him. It was just that this successor of the Ling people made him feel a deep fear from the bottom of his heart. Sky demon, we meet again. Ling Zhao's expression was calm, but his tone was piercingly cold. Sky demon. When the surrounding prodigies heard these 2 words, their expressions instantly changed. But when they saw the black-robed figure standing in the void with his hands behind his back, the panic in their eyes turned into determination. The Lord Ling Zhao's heart was for the common people. Now that he was facing the sky demon without a trace of fear, how could they weaken the prestige of the human race? Sky demon? Ling Xiao, I don't know what you're talking about, but you should know who I am, right? Qin Shin gritted his teeth fiercely. His gaze moved between Gu Chaoxiai and Ling Xiao. At this moment, he was weighing the pros and cons. Given the domineering performance of the Ling people's young master today, if he challenged him directly, what were his chances of winning and killing him? Hiromu of Gogirio had already said that there was an 80% chance of exposing the Fu Sang battlesuit. But once this divine item was coveted by others, Qin Shin's future path would be extremely difficult. Who are you? Ling Xiao furrowed his brows, seeming to be somewhat puzzled. You killed my brother's sworn sister and humiliated his reputation. Ling Xiao, Gu Chaoxiai, if I don't kill you too, I'm not human. Qin Shin looked up to the sky and shouted. At this point, he no longer intended to hide his identity. Otherwise, If everyone believed that he was involved with the sky demon today, then he would not be tolerated by the entire world. Hmm? So it's you. Ling Zhao's eyes narrowed, as if he suddenly realized something. You're the sky demon, Qin Shun. Puffed. Chapter 999. You. Qin Shun was enraged. Many geniuses around him were confused. Qin Shun? Who was Qin Shun? No wonder Ji Ying was tainted with demonic aura. I thought it had something to do with his demon spirit. I didn't expect him to be the sky demon's henchman. Ling Xiao sneered. He had never intended to let the divine spirit celestial dynasty off. A small celestial dynasty actually dared to covet Gu Chao Ci. Even if this had nothing to do with the Ji family, but some things were not innocent since they were involved. The sky demon's henchman, or the sky demon's vassal. These two words were enough to infuriate this celestial dynasty. Given the dread the forces of the Azure Sky world had towards the heavenly demon, anything that had anything to do with these two words would definitely attract a true calamity. According to Ling Zhao's guess, the Xinwu dynasty would eliminate this celestial dynasty before the Ling people or the Realm Lord Palace could do anything. What? Where did the demonic aura come from Ji Ying's body? I said there was. Why don't you ask him to come back to life and argue with me? Bullsh *T. I think you're the sky demon. Qin Shen's face turned pale. Suddenly, someone exclaimed, I remember now. He seemed to be sitting at the same table as young Master Lin Shun. Then, for some reason, they parted on bad terms. No wonder the enchantment above young Master Lin Shun's courtyard didn't disappear, but it was a mess inside. That means he exposed his demonic aura when he fought with young Master Lin Shun. Bullsh *T. I don't know any Lin Shun at all. Qin Shen's face turned even paler. He frowned and looked at Ling Xiao. Seeing the latter's calm and gentle face, he felt a chill in his heart. Qin Shun didn't believe that he had nothing to do with all these arrangements. However, when did he fall into the trap of the young master of the Ling people? I haven't even expressed my interest, and he's already chosen the color of the pot for me. Also, how did he know that he would make a move on Gu Chao Ci? How did he manage to seize the right opportunity? Suddenly, Qin Shun thought of a possibility. He didn't need to seize the opportunity at all. Perhaps Lin Shun could be killed with a wave of his hand under his arrangement. All he needed to do was to wait for him to make a move and instantly get rid of Lin Shun. Then, he would be able to shift all the blame onto himself. However, was the ringing of the immortal demon bell part of his plan? You still dare to be stubborn. No matter how you quibble, you deserve to die for daring to sneak attack this young master's fiancée. Ling Xiao snorted coldly. He suddenly stretched out his hand, and layers of immortal aura undulated around him. A terrifying opportunity began to awaken. A lightning palm that was hundreds of meters long slammed down from the sky. There seemed to be billions of Tao patterns on it, and it contained unstoppable divine power. Qin Shen's expression turned serious. His eyes were filled with fighting spirit. Then, he clenched his hand into a fist. Instead of advancing, he retreated and pounced on the lightning palm. Boom! The blue sky trembled. In the next moment, endless lightning splashed on the ground, illuminating the entire rock cliff city with a silvery white light. In the sky, Qin Shen stood with his hands behind his back. His expression was indifferent, but there was a faint smile at the corner of his mouth. Ling Zhao's attack just now was indeed extremely terrifying. There was even a hint of perfected Tao intent in it. Unfortunately, with the Fu Sang divine armor, this level of attack couldn't hurt him at all. The young master of the Ling people was just SOSO. Look, what is that on his body? However, just as Qin Shun was secretly feeling proud, the crowd suddenly burst into an uproar. Then, fear flashed across everyone's faces. They looked at Qin Shun with a hint of fear. Qin Shen's expression turned serious. He lowered his head to look at the armor on his body, and his heart skipped a beat. Ling Zhao's lightning palm did not cause any injury to Qin Shun. However, the Tao of lightning was the most violent force in the world. How could a black robe resist it? In other words, from the beginning, Ling Xiao did not plan to kill Qin Shun in front of everyone. If I kill the sky demon now, who will take the blame for the disappearance of all the monsters in the Azure world and the destruction of the sect in the future? Remember, the one who killed was the sky demon. What does it have to do with me, Ling Xiao? That day, Ling Yuanxing said that Qin Shun had an extremely strange armor on his body. There was even an eye in the middle. With this image, who would believe that he was not a demon? This armor looks a little evil. Everyone's expression changed slightly, especially when they saw the ferocious wrinkles that looked like dead branches. They felt a chill down their spines. However, at this time, the eye on the armor had not opened, and there was no trace of demonic intent circulating on it. They could not determine that this armor was a demon. However, it did not matter. Now, Qin Shun was in a situation where there was only a slim chance of survival. As for Ling Xiao's attack, just now, it was just to test whether Qin Shun was wearing the armor or not. Since it was, everything would be easy. Oof. The sky demon is indeed terrifying. Ling Xiao shouted coldly. Gu Chaoxiai's eyes revealed a hint of playfulness. This bastard. Is he indirectly praising me? With Gu Chaoxiai's temperament, how could she not guess Ling Xiao's intention? The appearance of the sky demon was an indisputable fact. Since Ling Xiao wanted to get rid of suspicion, he naturally needed someone to take the blame. This way, he could safely hide behind the scenes and harvest the creation realm creatures. Gu Chaoxiai did not know how he destroyed the sacred sect and came to the Azure world. But it was obvious that this guy's scheming was enough to make people wary. Thinking about it, the fall of the ancestor of the Foliaceae was probably also a means that Ling Xiao had set up to hide the secret of the Shengzhou continent. However, Gu Chaoxiai was a little puzzled. Why would Yi Qingchuan, a member of the Foliaceae, follow Ling Xiao so loyally? Ling Xiao, don't talk nonsense. If I don't kill you today, I won't be able to appease the hatred in my heart. Qin fiercely gritted his teeth. Just as he was about to step out, Gu Chaoxiai suddenly snorted coldly and rushed towards Qin Shun before Ling Xiao did. Since Ling Xiao had chosen this person to take the blame, he must be hiding a shocking secret. Only by forcing him into a desperate situation would he be able to reveal all his tricks. I didn't take action because Ling Xiao was injured. Although Yi Qingchuan once said that Ling Xiao and the Snow Tide Cliff were seriously injured to save the creatures of a world. But when he fought Sure Hao Ian today, I didn't see any abnormalities in him. The Supreme Being remains are about to open, and Ling Xiao's injury will most likely affect the upcoming treasure auction. Only by becoming stronger as soon as possible can he protect my child. I don't care about him at all. Ling Xiao's eyes turned cold, but the corners of his mouth inexplicably curled up in a smile. Gu Chaoxiai, you also deserve to die. Qin Shun angrily roared, and spiritual light bloomed around his body. However, he never used the power of the Fu Sang battle armor from beginning to end. After all, this battle armor was a demonic item. Once he activated the demonic power within, his identity as the Sky Demon would be confirmed. You don't know what's good for you. Gu Chaoxiai's jade-like mouth opened slightly. Her voice was sweet and clear, and the ancient sword in her hand suddenly slashed down. Buzz! A biting cold sword intent instantly bloomed in the sky, like the Milky Way pouring down, illuminating the eternal firmament. Chapter 1000. Praising the Empress has made her move. How could she not make a move? Qin Shun is a true demon. Praising the Empress must be worried that Master Ling Xiao will be injured, so she can't help but make a move. That's true. After all, the Empress is one of the 10 sequences in the Azure Sky sect. Although she hasn't fought for decades, her combat power must be above young masters. I'm so envious of praising the Empress and Master Ling Xiao's love. There's simply a match made in heaven. I'm so jealous. I'm wet. Look at the tears on my face. Above Rock Cliff City, Sword Chi swept across. An unparalleled sharpness tore through the void and fell towards Qin Shun. Facing Gu Chaoxiai's attack, Qin Shun's expression was also a little serious. According to his own strength, he might not be Gu Chaoxiai's opponent. However, at this time, he couldn't use the power of the Fusang battle armor. It was really frustrating. Chenzi, why don't you retreat first? Where there's life, there's hope. Hiromu of Gogirio's voice rang out in Qin Chen's soul sea. Qin Chen's expression was slightly serious. In the end, he sighed in his heart and turned to leave. However, at this time, Ling Zhao's face revealed a cold smile. His figure flashed and instantly blocked in front of him. In his hand, the great sage Fu Tian released a monstrous green light. Without any hesitation, he slashed down. The sword intent swept out and extended for tens of thousands of feet, completely sealing off Qin Chen's escape route. Facing the attacks of two top monsters in the Azure Sky sect at the same time, Qin Chen's eyes flashed with a hint of fear. Damn it! Chenzi, hurry up and leave. In the sky above, Qin Chen's body suddenly lit up with divine light. It seemed like there was a fluctuation in the space. What are you all hesitating for? Follow me and slay the demons. Seeing this scene, Ling Zhao's eyes were filled with mockery as he shouted angrily. Instantly, countless sounds of Tao rang out. One after another, spirit treasures shot up into the sky and smashed towards Qin Chen. You! Qin Chen's eyes trembled violently. Clearly, he had not expected the young master of the Ling people to be so shameless. Instead of fighting him fairly, he had called for everyone to kill him. Chenzi, there's no other way. I'll protect you. Hurry up and leave. The dense spiritual light pierced through the sky, causing one's scalp to go numb. At this moment, a demonic will finally circulated on Qin Chen's armor, and Hiromu of Gogirio's blood-red eyes suddenly opened. It's devil intent. What a terrifying devil intent. Countless exclamations could be heard. Fear was written all over the faces of the sky prides of the ancient race, especially that blood-red eye, which was filled with the vicissitudes of life, made everyone feel small and insignificant. This demonic armor was the first time they had seen it. The sinister and evil intent it contained made even some of the disciples of the large clans and immortal sects tremble in fear. That's right, they had never seen the sky demon before. However, since it was the great demon of the nine heavens, there was no way it could be as divine as Lord Ling Xiao. Evil, cold, dark, and cruel, especially Lin Shun's death, which made everyone believe that Qin Shun was the reincarnation of the sky demon. Kill! The angry roar shook the heavens and earth. With Ling Xiao and Gu Chaoxiai here, these disciples did not have much fear on their faces. Slaying the sky demon was a grand event. If they could accomplish this feat today, it would definitely be recorded in the annals of history for future generations to admire. Even some of the Emperor God extras took out their treasures and rushed toward the void as if they were ready to die. However, just as everyone was driving their spiritual treasures to surround Qin Shun without hesitation, the blood-red eye on the ancient armor on his chest suddenly lit up with an evil radiance. A beam of blood-red light pierced through the sky and melted countless treasures in an instant. Even some of the exalted realm geniuses could not react in time and were hit by the blood-red light, turning into nothingness in an instant. Not to mention those Emperor God disciples. They saw him soar into the sky, saw him leave his mark in the annals of history, saw him explode. Immortal King, kill Ling Xiao. Qin Chen's figure gradually turned illusory, but his eyes flashed with extreme hatred. As the young master of the Ling people, Ling Xiao would definitely have many life-saving trump cards on him. But now that the power of the Fusang battlesuit had been exposed and so many disciples were killed in an instant, even if Qin Shun wanted to defend himself, there was nothing he could do. In that case, there was nothing to worry about. Hiromu of Goguryeo said in a low voice. His blood-red evil eye suddenly looked toward Ling Xiao. A blood-red line instantly pierced through the void and fell between Ling Xiao's eyebrows. There seemed to be a destructive force quietly awakening, killing countless ancient clan disciples along the way. Seeing this scene, everyone's expression changed greatly. Even Gu Chaoxiai's beautiful eyes flashed with a hint of panic. Then, she instinctively stepped forward and stood in front of Ling Xiao. Boundless clear radiance started to blossom around him, and the aura of primal chaos rose and fell, forming all sorts of profound and divine scenes. There seemed to be divine mountains standing tall, rivers flowing in reverse, the sun and moon reversing, and immortal palaces descending from the sky. But this time, facing this silent light, Gu Chaoxiai's face no longer had the confidence for before. She could sense that this gaze that contained nirvanic extermination was not something her physical body could withstand at all. Even if Ling Xiao had the body of the sky demon, it would be difficult for him to escape death if he was hit. At this moment, Gu Chaoxiai's heart was no longer thinking about the child in her belly. This scene was so familiar. Back in the Shenzhou land, Xiaoqin cursed before he died and used the Ghost Pearl secret technique to unleash the blood-red light, wanting to kill Ling Xiao in one fell swoop. At the critical moment, it was Nian Qingyun's memory that had awakened and blocked this attack with the power of her body, causing the 9 doppelgangers to fail the tribulation. Perhaps this was fate. Gu Chaoxiai's face suddenly bloomed with a touch of bitterness, like a green lotus blooming in the darkness, pure and without regret. But, just as she closed her eyes and prepared to welcome death, her jade-like hand was suddenly grasped and then gently pulled. Gu Chaoxi opened her eyes in panic, only to see a gentle and handsome face in front of her. It was a gentle and handsome face. Even if she had seen it countless times in her dreams, Gu Chaoxi still felt a rush of excitement when she saw the clean smile at the corner of his mouth at such a close distance. His immortal face was unparalleled, and his temperament was gentle. If one did not know his identity and origin, no one would take the initiative to associate him with the Sky Demon. And just as Gu Chaoxi was in a daze, Ling Xiao rudely pulled her into his arms, his back facing the blood-red light that pierced through the sky. But there was no trace of panic on his face, but there seemed to be a trace of anger between his brows. "Wife, do you really not take my words to heart? I said that in the future, as long as you stand behind me, no one in this world can hurt you." Boom! The domineering and gentle voice entered her ears. At this moment, Gu Chaoxiai's heart trembled, and even a trace of mist seemed to surge out of her eyes. The entire rock cliff city instantly fell into a dead silence. Everyone looked at the two figures embracing each other in the night sky in shock. Other than envy, there was nothing else in their eyes. Just how loyal must one be to be able to remain so calm in the face of death? What kind of deep love did he have for him to choose such a method to express his love for her? "You blocked death for me, but I can't bear to let you suffer even a trace of harm. Lord Ling Xiao, you are the god of man." Sob, 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 sob. Gradually, some people began to cry softly. Even Qin Chen's face flashed with a trace of surprise. It turned out that these two people's love was so deep. For a moment, he actually had some doubts. Could it be that third brother really did steal her and deserve to die? Chapter 1001. Boom! The blood-red light pierced through the sky and landed on Ling Xiao's back. The young man's face turned pale, and blood flowed from his mouth. Clang, clang, clang. At the end of the world, a golden bell stood in the sky, shining brightly. However, just as Qin Chen's figure was about to disappear, a hand suddenly reached out from the void and grabbed him, bringing him away from this place. Go! A holy will descended and turned into demonic light, forcing everyone to retreat. Qin Chen's figure finally disappeared into the darkness. However, at this moment, the Chosen One's face was clearly filled with astonishment. "Who saved me? No, what's the meaning of this demonic will? Also, I clearly used the talisman and was about to leave this place. Why did you save me now? What is your intention?" The Sky Demon's accomplice. Everyone's expression changed, especially the demonic will in the sky. It made everyone's heart tremble. As expected, Master Ling Xiao had guessed that the sky demon must have had someone protecting him since he was able to grow to such a level. The same plane? Ling Xiao. However, Gu Chaoxiai's eyes were only on Ling Xiao. Her lips trembled and tears flowed from her eyes uncontrollably. I'm fine. Ling Xiao shook his head slightly and spat out another mouthful of blood. The aura around him weakened, and even the light in his eyes seemed to have dimmed at this moment. Lord Ling Xiao. In an instant, thousands of people in Rock Cliff City grieved. Countless cries filled the sky and shook everyone's heart. Even some of the rough-looking men clenched their fists and silently shed tears of gratitude. The young master's righteousness was known throughout the world. However, after seeing it today, people realized that the rumors were not true. The young master was more than righteous. He was the only one in the 9 heavens. Beep. The daughter of destiny has been moved, and her state of mind has changed. Congratulations, host, for obtaining 10,000 luck points and 100,000 villain points. Hearing the system notification, the corners of Ling Xiao's lips curled up into a subtle smile. Just now, he had used his devil will to activate the unforgiven devil armor to resist the power of the blood-red eye, which had caused the immortal devil ancient bell to vibrate. This way, everyone would be certain that Qin Shun was the sky demon. Of course, although Ling Xiao was confident that Qin Shun would not be able to kill him with his current cultivation and no pardon, he had already prepared the death substitute puppet in his palm. Even if the unforgiven demonic armor couldn't stop this attack, his life wouldn't be in any danger. When it came to acting, the more dangerous it was, the more exciting it would be. However, from the looks of it now, he had underestimated the might of the unforgiven demonic armor. Even though he had yet to fully control the armor, the previous attack was still unable to harm him in the slightest. As for these mouthfuls of blood, of course we coughed it out seriously. How are you? Don't talk. I'll take you to treat your injuries. Gu Chaoxiai had already let down her usual guard, especially the bloodstains on the young man's mouth, which made her feel an indescribable sense of oppression and pain. Only now did she realize that Nian Qingyun's obsession had been unknowingly engraved into her bones. Out of the 9 doppelgangers, 8 of them were emotionless and selfless. However, the last one had destroyed her Taoist heart and cultivation, and it was impossible to recover. I'm fine. Wife, do you remember what I said? Ling Zhao's expression was cold as he stared fiercely at Gu Chaoxiai. At this moment, he could see that the destiny of this woman had not decreased, but increased instead. It had risen to 90,000. Even the chaotic aura surrounding her had surged several times more than before. Sure enough, her destiny had been lost because of him, and now was gradually recovering as the door of her heart opened. Wonderful. Remember, this time, Gu Chaoxiai did not pretend to be indifferent. Instead, she nodded calmly. Even though she knew that everything that had happened today was deliberately arranged by Ling Xiao, the danger just now was real. She did not believe that Ling Xiao was confident that he could block the attack that even a saint could not block. Although he did it, he was seriously injured because of it. Go back first. I still have some things to do. No, Gu Chaoxiai gritted her teeth. Looking at the coldness between the young man's brows, she did not dare to refute. Her figure landed in the courtyard and disappeared. Ling Xiao turned to look in the direction where Qin Shun had disappeared. A trace of a smile flashed in his eyes. He had arranged this carefully, of course, not to let Qin Shun escape and give him a chance to show off and slap his face. Although this plan seemed perfect, there was a huge flaw. Qin Shun, as long as someone could find him and search his soul, they would know that everything that had happened today had been set up. The ancient bell of the immortal demon would prove that the sky demon had indeed appeared. Even if no one would suspect Ling Xiao, when there were too many coincidences, it would always be suspicious. Thus, Qin Shun had to die. Furthermore, he had to die quietly and without a trace. Thus, no matter who wanted to find him, it would be impossible. Now, everyone was certain that Qin Shun was the sky demon. For the time being, This blame was firmly placed on him. Of course, if the sky demon did not appear for a long time, it would attract a lot of suspicion. This was why at the last moment, someone stepped in to save Qin Shun. The sky demon had accomplices. Qin Shun might not even be the sky demon himself. He might have controlled some of the sky demon's methods. As for who the real sky demon was, it would depend on who was lucky enough to be chosen by Ling Xiao. This way, this plan could be considered perfect. The reason why Ling Xiao had set up this plan before the opening of the Supreme Secret Territory was because he had another plan. Now, there were not many young geniuses in Rockcliffe City who were fun to play with. After all, the Supreme Secret Territory was tempting. However, how many of the talented geniuses in the clan would be truly tempted by it? But once the sky demon appeared, it would definitely attract some people who were truly destined to come here and help Ling Xiao kill the demon. At that time, everyone would enter the secret realm together. With Qin Shun as the scapegoat, Ling Xiao would be able to kill whoever he wanted. Furthermore, he would be able to get rid of all suspicion. The door to Gu Chaoxiai's heart had been gradually opened. It would not be long before this destined girl fell into depravity again. 3 birds with 1 stone. There were no loopholes. Everyone. Ling Xiao's figure stood in the air, his face extremely pale. At this time, the geniuses who had been crying finally smiled from the bottom of their hearts. Young Master's safety was our wish. The sky demon has appeared. I'm afraid it's here for the Supreme Secret Territory's relics. Although it has someone protecting it, I'm guessing that this person will not dare to appear so easily. Otherwise, he would not have made a move at the last moment. But if we summon the powerful cultivators in the clan now, I'm afraid the sky demon will be scared off. Ling Xiao sighed softly and looked hesitant. So, I've decided to go to the Supreme Secret Territory alone. Since the sky demon wants to kill me, I'll wait for him to come and fight him. When the time comes, I'll fight with my life and kill this demon for the sake of the world. Young Master, righteous. Hearing this, everyone was shocked. They looked at Ling Xiao with nothing but respect. How righteous was this? He was seriously injured, but he still cared about the world. That's right. With the sky demon's cunning, once it sensed that a powerful cultivator had arrived, it would definitely hide itself again. But Master Ling Xiao was using himself as bait to lure the demon. How dangerous was that? Young Master, how could the world be worthy of your protection? Chapter 1002. The Sky Demon has appeared. I think there will be more righteous Tao prodigies coming to this ruin. With their help, the Sky Demon may not be able to escape. Ling Xiao stood in the void with his hands behind his back. He looked up at the sky, and there seemed to be divine light blooming from his body. Although his aura was extremely weak, the aura on his body was like a divine mountain, making it hard for people to breathe. The Emperor's aura had appeared. With such a prodigy, there was no need to worry about the human race's prosperity. Young Master, we are willing to follow you to death and help you kill the demon. Countless shouts of respect instantly resounded. Even some of the ancient clan disciples who originally wanted to escape this place felt a sense of holiness from the bottom of their hearts. Perhaps this was Master Ling Xiao's innate charm. With him around, this chaotic world would be stable and the galaxy would not fall. It's late now. Everyone go back first. I will order the city lords of the 100 Cliff City to send people to patrol and prevent the sky demon from coming back. Ling Xiao nodded calmly. His figure descended from the sky and landed in the courtyard. However, just as he was about to step into Gu Chaoxiai's room, his figure strangely disappeared for a moment. A ripple suddenly appeared in the darkness. Ling Xiao's figure appeared again. He pushed the door open and walked into the room. Outside Rockcliffe City, 100 miles to the east. Boom! Qin Shen's figure was violently thrown from the sky and smashed into a barren mountain. If not for the protection of the Fusang battle armor, his bones would have been broken by this fall. At this time, his face was extremely gloomy. He looked up at the figure standing in the void with his hands behind his back. It was a middle-aged man with a cold expression, wearing a black robe with red clouds imprinted on it. There was a divine aura around him, and a demonic aura was everywhere. It was obvious that this was a great demon of the saint stage. Although there were few demonic cultivators in the Azure world, they were not rare. But why did this demon save him? Now that Qin Shun carried the name of the Sky Demon's reincarnation, he would not be able to wash it off in a short time. However, his heart was not evil, and he would not walk with a demon. Senior, who exactly are you? Qin Shun took a deep breath, and his eyes flickered with vigilance. However, at this moment, the great demon in the void only looked at him calmly and did not open his mouth. From the looks of it, he seemed to be waiting for someone. This, Qin Shun frowned and communicated with the Fu Sang battlesuit with his divine soul. Immortal King, Ling Xiao should be dead, right? Are you questioning this immortal king? Even though this immortal king is in dire straits and has lost his cultivation, how can a mere Exalt Realm youth resist this immortal king's nirvana gaze? If he doesn't die, I'll do a handstand and eat shit. Oh, that's good. Then, Immortal King, can you use your ultimate technique again and force this great devil of the Sage Realm to retreat? Just now, Qin Shun had already used the only spatial god talisman in his possession. He didn't want to be interrupted by this devil. Even if he wanted to escape, there was nothing he could do. This nirvana gaze was shot out by this immortal king's hundreds of years of soul power. Do you think you can shoot out as you wish? This thing needs to rest. Even if you're a sage, don't you have a sage's time? I think you're deliberately trying to kill me. Hiromu of Gogiryo's tone was furious. To think that he, a dignified immortal king, was actually helpless against a sage realm ant. He was truly aggrieved to the extreme. This, Immortal King, please calm down. Then let's wait a little longer. Qin Shun sighed softly. Since Ling Xiao was already dead, the hatred in his heart had mostly disappeared. As for Gu Chao Ci, he would be able to kill her in one fell swoop after resting for a few days. In this way, the hatred between his brothers and Ji Hanyu would be completely avenged. At the thought of Ji Hanyu, Qin Shen's face flashed with disappointment. Just now, Ling Xiao and Gu Chao Ci sacrificed their lives to protect each other, which made him feel extremely touched. He did not expect this arrogant and despotic young master of the Ling people to have such a sentimental side. Sigh, humans are indeed complicated and contradictory. Immortal King, do you think that Ling Xiao could be the Sky Demon? Are you blind? That young man has a divine aura and has no demonic nature. How could he be the Sky Demon? Moreover, the Sky Demon is feared by all 9 heavens. As a #1 demon of all time, he is domineering and powerful. If he wanted to kill you, why would he need to waste so much effort? A finger? No, a look would be enough to crush you to death. Hiromu of Gogiryo snorted coldly. In his impression, the Sky Demon was domineering and did not care about schemes at all. It was also because of this that he was schemed against by the immortal race and finally fell in the long river of history. But now, Hiromu of Gogiryo did not have a good impression of the immortal race. To think that he, the immortal king, had his corpse left in the mortal world for more than 100,000 years. It was really tragic. The 2 words Sky Demon were not something that the living beings of the mortal realm could understand. To the living beings of the 9 heavens, these 2 words were even more supreme. Even if he had reincarnated and lost all his cultivation, his power alone was not something that any venerable realm or saint realm cultivator could resist. Oh, Qin Shun nodded silently. He felt that everything that happened today was too coincidental and felt slightly uneasy. Then he looked up at the void and suddenly bowed. Senior, thank you for saving me just now. If there is nothing else, I will take my leave first. Master is not here yet. Where do you want to go? The black-robed, middle-aged man frowned slightly. His divine aura fell and almost crushed Qin Shun to the ground. Master? Hearing this, Qin Shen's eyes became more and more shocked. The master of a saint realm demonic cultivator, could he be a venerable realm cultivator? Buzz. Just as Qin Shun was thinking to himself, A piercing, buzzing sound came from the distant sky. He saw a black-robed figure walking in the air. His posture was tall and straight, and his Taoist rhymes were abundant. "Greetings, master." The black-robed, middle-aged man bowed. Before Qin Shan could see clearly who it was, he also bowed uneasily. "Yes, Brother Qin. Sorry to keep you waiting." Ling Xiao glanced at Shi Patian. Ever since the three of them followed Ling Xiao, they had been staying in the realm to cultivate. Shi Patian was a demonic cultivator. Now, he had become a weapon that Ling Xiao used to frame others. Hearing this voice, Qin Chen's face froze. Then, he slowly raised his head and looked at the black-robed figure descending from the sky. His eyes suddenly flashed with shock. Ling Xiao, what was going on? The demonic cultivator who saved him was his servant. But why did he save him out of the kindness of his heart? For a moment, Qin Shen seemed to be confused. But before he could figure out the reason behind it, he saw Ling Xiao's eyes flicker with coldness. After that, Ling Xiao didn't waste his breath and slashed out abruptly with the ancient sword in his hand, causing it to transform into an ocean of swords that descended towards Qin Shen. "You!" Qin Shen's face changed drastically. Hiromu of Goguryeo, who was pretending to be dead, opened his eyes and said in a terrified tone, "How is this possible? How can you resist my nirvana eyes?" A smile immediately appeared on Ling Xiao's face when he heard the exclamation coming from the armor. However, the sword in his hand did not slow down in the slightest. Immediately, it tore through space and enveloped Qin Shen's figure. Buzz! A sudden sword cry resounded between heaven and earth. The void within 100 miles shattered, and only a wisp of clear light in the sword radiance gradually surged. Chapter 1003. Ling Xiao, it's really you. Suddenly, a demonic figure shot out from the sword radiance, shattering everything in its path. At that moment, Qin Shen's battle armor had been fully activated. The crisscrossing ancient trees and ravines were like the cracked earth, giving off a sense of vicissitudes and toughness. Oh, it can actually withstand the perfect sword law. Ling Xiao's eyes were cold, but the smile on his face was getting brighter. This battle armor's origin was probably not simple. Ling Xiao, do you really think that I'm afraid of you? Qin Shen gritted his teeth. Although he did not know how the young master of the Ling people had avoided Hiromu of Goguryo's silent gaze, he still felt very uneasy. Immortal King, how'd he dodge your attack? I guess he has a divine-level life-saving trump card on him. Even so, I'm afraid that trump card has already been broken. Hiromu of Goguryo's tone was low, and his eyes flickered with a hint of gloominess. Immortal King, how's your recovery? With our current level of cooperation, can we fight Ling Xiao? He's merely in the venerable realm. He's just relying on his background. Don't worry, if you and I join forces, we can easily kill Ling Xiao. Hiromu of Goguryo snorted coldly, and his blood-red eyes were filled with an endless desire to fight. Hearing this, the panic in Qin Shen's eyes disappeared, and his whole body was filled with heroic spirit. Even his palms were covered by ancient trees, which turned into 2 7-foot-long sabers, making people shudder. Ling Xiao, let me see the true strength of the young master of the Ling people. But just as Qin Shen's eyes were filled with the desire to fight and he was about to step out, the young man on top of his head suddenly smiled and said, "I didn't say that I wanted to fight with you." Then he waved his hand, and Mount Ray and Jade Hanyin appeared in the void, surrounding Qin Shen with Shi Patian. "I want him alive." As soon as Ling Xiao finished speaking, the three of them suddenly tore through the void and rushed toward Qin Shen angrily. Originally, when Ling Xiao encountered a Child of Destiny, he had to continuously attack the Child of Destiny's luck before he could complete the harvest. But now, with the increase of his destiny forging value, he no longer needed to plunder in less than 10,000 points of destiny. He could directly kill them. How could he expect a villain to have a fair battle with you? Childish. Ling Xiao, shameless. Qin Shen looked up to the sky and shouted, his eyes full of unwillingness. At this time, he obviously did not expect the young master of the Ling people to be so shameless. First, he set him up to take the blame, and now he ordered the three saints to fight him together. No matter how confident Qin Shen was, he still had no room to fight back against three saints. Suddenly, smoke and dust rose from the barren mountain, and the spiritual power was vast and mighty. Qin Shen's figure was like a rubber ball, being hammered back and forth by Mount Ray and Shurpatian. Even if he was wearing the Fu Sang battle armor, he could not fight back at all. If not for the extremely terrifying life force contained in the armor, the three saints' spiritual power alone would be enough to crush him to death. Ling Xiao, shameless. Fight me fairly if you have the guts. Hearing Qin Shen's roar, Ling Xiao's face suddenly revealed a look of disdain. Fool! Boom! After a long while, Qin Shen's figure was captured by Mount Ray and Shurpatian and dragged in front of Ling Xiao. The Chosen One's face was already swollen like a pig's head. Even so, his aura was not too weak, and even the ancient armor was not damaged in the slightest. The fact that it could withstand the attacks of three saints at the same time showed the power of the armor. This armor is not bad, but it's a pity that you're too weak. Ling Xiao walked in front of Qin Shen and suddenly stretched out his palm, pressing toward the latter's head. However, before his palm could touch Qin Shen, the withered wood on the ancient armor turned into a shield and wrapped around his head. From afar, Qin Shen at this time was like an old tree, seamless and without any flaw. Boom! As Ling Xiao's palm fell, a muffled groan was heard. Spiritual light sprinkled and Tao inscriptions appeared, but there was not a single crack on the ancient armor. Ling Xiao narrowed his eyes and looked Qin Shen up and down. Suddenly, he grinned. Then, with a thought from him, everyone appeared in the realm. Phoenix Rouge and Bai Ling suddenly descended from the sky and appeared next to Ling Xiao. Young master, where did you dig up this old tree from? Phoenix Rouge looked curiously at the figure in the hands of Mount Ray and Shurpatian. This shape is quite unique. Rouge, try your sky poison and see if it can break the shield of this sacred wood. Although Ling Xiao did not know the origin of the sacred wood, the fact that it was able to withstand his full strength showed that the armor's defense was extremely terrifying. Of course, with Ling Xiao's current strength, he could use the demonic will to activate the ancient reincarnation blade and cut the wooden armor. However, if he did that, the armor would definitely be destroyed. Wouldn't that be a waste? Okay. Phoenix Rouge nodded slightly and stretched out her hand. A wisp of dense, poisonous fog suddenly flowed along Qin Shen's body. However, in the end, the wooden armor resisted the corrosion of the sky poison without any flaw. Young master, this won't do. Where did this sacred wood come from? How can it resist the sky poison? Ling Xiao, you want to kill me? Dream on. The spirit Qi in this place is so rich. I have to thank you for finding me such a wonderful place to cultivate. Seeing that Ling Xiao was at his wit's end, Qin Shen's voice suddenly came from the ancient armor. Phoenix Rouge and Bai Ling's faces turned cold. Interesting. Ling Xiao nodded slightly and waved his hand. An ancient bronze cauldron suddenly appeared in front of everyone's eyes. Then, he grabbed Qin Shen and stuffed him headfirst into the cauldron. Then, a spiritual fire bloomed on each of his palms. Buzz! The terrifying heat burned the space into nothingness in an instant. Thousands of miles of the void turned into a sea of fire, covering the clouds and the sun. It was terrifying. Before Qin Shen could react, Ling Xiao waved his hand gently, and the golden and black flames fell into the cauldron. After seeing that the ancient armor did not break under the burning of the spiritual fire, Ling Xiao nodded in satisfaction. He sealed the mouth of the cauldron and landed in front of everyone. Woo-woo! Ling Xiao, you will die a horrible death. Qin Shen's roar came from the divine cauldron. Ling Xiao shook his head and said calmly, Brother Qin, if you can't hold on any longer, you can call for me at any time. What a joke. No matter where the divine wood armor came from, it was the heavenly Tao that the spiritual fire restrained the wood. Even if the divine armor could hold on for a period of time, it would not be able to withstand the heat in the long run. Not to mention, with Qin Shin's cultivation level being enveloped by the two spiritual fires, just the heat alone was a great torture. Now that he had wrapped himself so tightly, do you think he would be roasted alive until he turned golden? Chapter 1004. Ling Xiao, you're not human. Even though Qin Shun had a tough heart, when he felt the terrifying heat eroding from the Fusang divine armor at this time, his eyes still cracked as he involuntarily cursed. He was like a turtle trapped in a jar. Although he was not in danger, he would be roasted alive in a few days after being corroded by the spiritual fire. I'm done for. Immortal King, what should we do? Think of something. It's the heaven and earth spiritual fire, and there are two of them. Hiromu of Goguryeo also had his eyes closed. His tone was inexplicably gloomy. Qin Shun, how about this? We'll pretend to surrender and see how Ling Xiao will deal with you. If we can ease our relationship with him, we'll save our lives first. If not, I'll risk my divine soul to use the nirvana eyes to help you escape. Ease our relationship? He killed my elder brother. This hatred is absolutely irreconcilable. Hearing this, Qin Shin's expression became even more ferocious. Even if he died, he would never bow down to Ling Xiao. Childish. Life is full of ups and downs. You can only avenge your elder brother if you live on. But there's no buts. Shinzi, don't worry. In 10 years, you and I will completely merge. I promise you that the entire Qin Song will respect you. Hiromu of Goguryeo's voice was urgent, but Qin Shin fell into a long silence. Yes, this ancient armor could resist the spiritual fire, but his divine soul might not be able to hold on for too long. Just as Qin Shun was hesitating, he could clearly feel the heart-piercing heat suddenly surging. It seemed to have the power to penetrate the ancient armor. Shinzi, I can't hold on any longer, Hiromu of Goguryeo exclaimed. Qin Shun gritted his teeth and raised his hand to hit the ancient cauldron next to him. At this moment, his emotions were extremely complicated. He felt extremely humiliated. However, Hiromu of Goguryeo was right. Only by staying alive could they have a chance to turn the tables. 30 years in the east, 30 years in the west. He would make Ling Xiao pay 100-fold for everything that had happened today. Clang! Clang! You can't hold on anymore? Ling Xiao was just about to turn around and leave when he heard a series of rapid knocking sounds coming from the giant cauldron behind him. However, at this moment, his eyes seemed to be pondering, and the smile at the corner of his mouth became even more sinister. With the nature of the Chosen One, it was impossible for him to compromise with a villain. Moreover, time passed too quickly. Obviously, someone had added fuel to the fire and made a wise choice. Buzz! Ling Xiao stretched out his hand and grabbed the flames in the cauldron along with Qin Shun. Brother Qin, you can't hold on anymore? Ling Xiao's smile was playful, not hiding the mockery on his face. On the other hand, Qin Shun gritted his teeth and said word by word, Young Master Ling Xiao, I accept my defeat in your hands today. All our previous grudges are written off. Oh, Ling Xiao shook his head. These Chosen One really thought too highly of himself. Even when he lowered his head, he was still stubborn. Written off? You make it sound like I'm being manipulated by you. But just as Ling Xiao's eyes gradually turned cold and the flames around his body surged, the ancient armor that was originally covering Qin Shin's body suddenly fell off layer by layer. In an instant, it fell to the ground. Qin Shun froze, feeling a chill rise from the soles of his feet. What happened to the Azure Supremacy? Why did it feel like he'd been tricked by the Panopticon celestial dog again? Before he could react, Ling Xiao tore through the void and appeared in front of him. The flame-wreathed hand effortlessly grabbed his neck. Burp. In a short time, Qin Shin's figure disappeared in front of everyone, leaving only a layer of ashes on the ground. He left quietly, as if he had never been here. The Chosen One had lost his golden finger. What was there to be proud of? Beep. Congratulations to the host for successfully killing the Chosen One. You have gained 9,000 luck points and 90,000 villain points. Beep. Congratulations to the host for successfully killing the Chosen One. You have gained an additional reward, a chance to perfect your Tao Law. Beep. Congratulations to the host for successfully killing the Chosen One. You have gained an additional reward, a 9th grade sacred breakthrough pill. Young Master is amazing. A low exclamation came from the Fu Sang battlesuit. In the center of the battlesuit, a blood-red eye slowly opened, flashing with a hint of flattery. With the power of the battlesuit, it was not too difficult to resist the spiritual fire. At the very least, it could hold on for 100 days. However, Qin Shan was at the end of his rope. There was no chance at all. The two of them had only known each other for a few months. Hiromu of Goguryeo was a dignified, celestial king. How could he be willing to die here with Qin Shan? However, his soul was trapped and could not control the battlesuit at all. He deliberately cracked it just now to let Qin Shan feel the power of the spiritual fire and take the initiative to compromise. Then, if you want to die, I will fulfill your wish. Whether Ling Xiao was the sky demon or not, Hiromu of Goguryeo was no longer loyal to the celestial race. He was confident that with his knowledge and experience, even if his cultivation level was no longer the same, he could provide great help to Ling Xiao. Moreover, who would reject a supreme armor that was close to a supreme weapon? You are the weapon soul of this armor? Ling Xiao raised his eyebrows slightly. There was not a trace of surprise on his face. When the armor took the initiative to attack Rock Cliff City, Ling Xiao felt the hidden ancient power of the soul. It was obvious that this spiritual treasure had intelligence, which was why it had such a terrifying power. Yes. That's not it either. I am Hiromu of Goguryeo from the Nine Heavens. I died in the battle between gods and demons and was swallowed and refined by this demonic armor. My soul is trapped inside. I see that you have the aura of an emperor. I am willing to protect you until you reach the top of the world. Hiromu of Goguryeo's tone was excited. Demonic light bloomed in his blood-red eyes, illuminating the sky. Oh, Hiromu of Goguryeo? As expected, above the mortal realm, there was still the celestial realm. However, the celestial race ruled the nine heavens and sealed the opportunity for mortals to ascend. The so-called celestial realm had become a legend in the long river of history. What's the origin of this armor? This armor was refined by the kings of the celestial realm when they conquered the nine heavens and killed a Fu Sang divine tree. Its power is unparalleled. As long as you wear it, I guarantee that the creatures of the mortal realm will not be able to hurt you. Hiromu of Goguryeo spoke frankly with assurance. He did not notice the flickering mockery in Ling Xiao's eyes. Oh, Fu Sang divine tree? Ling Xiao nodded indifferently. No wonder. It was said that the Fu Sang divine tree was also born at the beginning of the primordial era. It was a plant spirit that merged with the ancestral qi of the primordial era to form an innate Tao. Although the tree was not as good at killing as the other primordial spirit, its understanding of chaos, time, and life was far from what other creatures could compare to. There were even rumors that the wood spirit could transform the universe and derive the primordial ancestral qi. It could be said to be a supreme creation for the current mortal realm. From demon Sovereign Zhongyu's words, Ling Xiao vaguely felt that the current mortal realm had lost its ancient luck. Even in the current era of great battles, if there was no ancestral qi, the cultivation of the people would still be restrained. He wondered if the armor still contained a trace of primordial ancestral qi. Young master, don't hesitate anymore. Wear me, and you will become the only one in the nine heavens. Chapter 1005. The Only One in the Nine Heavens. Ling Xiao shook his head with a warm smile on his face. In the next moment, before the joy in Hiromu of Goguryeo's eyes dissipated, he suddenly stretched out his hand. It was covered with layers of reverse scales like the hand of a demon god. It instantly pierced through space and grasped the blood-red eye tightly in his hand. A painful scream instantly rang out. Layers of blood immediately seeped out of the ancient armor. It was extremely miserable. "No, you can't kill me. I am Hiromu of Goguryeo, an unparalleled immortal. If you kill me, you'll suffer a backlash from the immortal Tao and be doomed eternally." An unparalleled immortal? Ling Xiao sneered. The divine rune between his eyebrows bloomed. Layers of demonic intent meandered into a vortex like a demonic eye. Instantly, Hiromu of Goguryo's eyes widened. There was an indescribable fear in his heart. You, Sky Demon. You are actually a Sky Demon. Boom! Vast demonic power rippled through heaven and earth. Hiromu of Goguryo's eyes finally revealed a hint of fear. At this moment, he seemed to feel that while the demonic intent circulated, his divine soul was actually unconsciously melting. However, his soul was now cursed by Fu Sang and could not break free from the shackles of the armor. He could only watch as the demonic intent wrapped around him and refined him. "No, I can't accept this. I can't accept this. I am from the immortal race. I am immortal. You can't kill me." Hiromu of Goguryo roared angrily. His aura was magnificent. A wave of immortal power surged out, shocking the 9 heavens and 10 lands. Poof! Ling Xiao suddenly clenched his fist and crushed the blood-red eye. The ancestral rune between his eyebrows appeared and instantly wiped out all the divine soul fluctuations in the ancient armor. Buzz! At the same time, a terrifying aura quietly rippled around him. A wave of divine soul power suppressed heaven and earth and dissipated in an instant. In Hiromu of Goguryo's soul sense, Ling Xiao could see some fragmented memories. Among them, there were battles between immortals and demons and divine palaces. However, what disappointed Ling Xiao was that the battle between immortals and demons had yet to end in the era of Verpka, Immortal King's death. Thus, he did not know much about the current 9 heavens. Fortunately, although this immortal king was only left with a wisp of his soul power was strong, and it helped Ling Xiao's soul to step into the 3rd Great Sage realm. The immortal origin aura that Ling Xiao had sensed earlier was most likely caused by Guang Mu's remnant soul. Unfortunately, he'd already been corroded by devil insight now, and he was neither a devil nor an immortal, so he naturally didn't have the so-called immortal opportunity to seize. "Congratulations, my lord." Mount Ray and the others bowed, but Ling Xiao walked to the Fu Sang battlesuit and picked it up from the ground, hesitating for a moment. His unforgiven demonic armor was the companion of the Sky Demon, and it was truly unique in the 9 heavens. Although the ancient armor in front of him had a terrifying origin, its evil nature was worrying. "Hanzhan." With a thought, Hanzhan's figure suddenly appeared in front of Ling Xiao from afar. The moment he knew the origin of the Fu Sang battlesuit, he made a decision in his heart. "My lord, try to use the power of the immortal token and see if you can revive the Fu Sang divine wood." At this moment, Ling Xiao thought that a mere battlesuit couldn't be considered a great fortune for him. However, if the Fu Sang divine wood could revive and stand in the realm, then this world would become a true cultivation holy land in the 9 heavens and 10 earths. Even if it was only a wisp of the primordial ancestral energy, it could allow people to break through their shackles and become the sole ruler of the world. Just think about it. These people of destiny who had submitted to him had stepped into the great emperor realm or even the immortal realm. What was there to be afraid of? Yes, Hanzhan bowed slightly, and spiritual light bloomed in his hand. An ancient immortal token suddenly appeared in the void, flickering with immortal intent. Then, under Hanzhan's control, the immortal token's light sprinkled from the sky and shone on the Fu Sang battlesuit. Suddenly, the withered wood on the battlesuit wriggled unconsciously, like the branches of an ancient tree, and let out a pleasant soft hum. "It really works." Ling Xiao raised his eyebrows slightly, and the corner of his mouth suddenly raised into a smile. From today onwards, put aside the matters of the medicine hall and focus on taking care of this item. Also, Take this ninth-grade divine pill back to the medicine hall and give it to Alchemy Emperor Sure. Tell him to study the formula of this pill and make sure to refine it. Ling Xiao waved his hand and handed the ninth-grade sacred breakthrough pill to Han Zhan. Rouge, give me some of the sky poison pearl you refined. Yes, young master. Phoenix Rouge immediately took out a few jade pearls from her Chinquin bag and handed them to Ling Xiao. Young master, are you still leaving today? I have some questions about cultivation that I would like to ask you, especially that three-body splitting technique. I'm very curious. Ling Xiao smiled slightly and reached out to pinch Phoenix Rouge's pretty face. Another day. Mount Ray Jade Hanyin. Master, the two of you take these pills and spiritual treasures and head to the realm entrances of the Azure Firmament regions. Find some ascended cultivators, regardless of their cultivation base, and bring them back to me. If anyone refuses to obey, then beat them until they obey. Ling Xiao took out 2 Chinquin bags and handed them to Jade Hanyin and Mount Ray. Most of them were 4th grade and 5th grade pills, Dao tools, and immortal weapons. Now that he had the Ling people's foundation, these things from the lower realm were meaningless to Ling Xiao. However, these treasures were heaven-defying for those who had just ascended to the Azure domain. Moreover, with Mount Ray and Jade Hanyin's cultivation, they had been trapped in the heart of the space-time beast for tens of thousands of years. Those who had just ascended couldn't compare to them. Even if they didn't want to follow him, Ling Xiao believed that the two of them would have a way to make them submit. Bai Ling, do you still remember the soul technique I taught you? Split it into 2 and give it to them. Remember, those who are over 100 years old, whether they submit or not, have them fuse with this seal. Those who are under 100 years old don't have to do it for now. Those who could ascend to the Azure domain before the age of 100 were either blessed by the heavens or possessed heaven-defying talent. If they were accidentally implanted with a soul seal, it would inevitably affect their luck. Now that Ling Xiao had a firm foothold, it was time for him to establish his own force. Only then could he be considered to have a true foundation. Those who had ascended from the lower realm were all people with great perseverance and great fortune. If he controlled these people and established a sect, perhaps they wouldn't be able to compete with the ancient sects in the Azure domain. But with Ling Xiao's support, pills and treasures wouldn't be a problem. If the Fusang ancient tree regained its vitality, this domain could become everyone's paradise. Those who had talent could enter the domain to cultivate. Those who didn't have talent and were determined could also cultivate secret guards and pawns and scatter them on the ground. In 100 years, Ling Xiao would have a trump card to contend with the various forces. Moreover, those who had just ascended to the Azure domain were bound to be terrified. Mount Ray and Jade Hanyin had sage realm cultivation and countless fortunes. They would definitely be regarded as members of a powerful force. Thus, there was no need to worry about them not submitting. Yes, Mount Ray and Jade Hanyin bowed, took the Chinquin bag and Bai Ling's soul seal, and turned to leave. Remember, this must be done in secret and must not be easily exposed. If anyone notices, send me a message and I will take care of it. A sinister look flashed in Ling Xiao's eyes. Mount Ray and Jade Hanyin immediately nodded and disappeared. Big brother, should I also leave the realm and look for a suitable dark guard? Bai Ling's eyes were cold. The feeling of being treated like a princess by Ling Xiao fascinated her. However, she was afraid that if she was too fascinated, she would lose her ambition to conquer the heavens. She wanted to be the sword in her brother's hand. How could she remain stagnant? Chapter 1006. There's no need for that now. Cultivate in your realm first. You can go out and train after you reach the Empyrean realm. Ling Xiao smiled and stroked Bai Ling's hair. Then, he looked up at the heavenly palace. A petite figure in black was sitting in the sky in front of the palace. She was swinging her legs. There was no expression on her face at all. However, there was an inexplicable sense of vicissitudes of life. This girl, did she think of something again? Ling Xiao frowned. He glanced at Bai Ling and the Phoenix Rouge again. Then, he disappeared from where he was. Chaos had appeared in the Azure continent. The Sky Demon had appeared and killed all the geniuses of the various races. However, there were always some people who weren't afraid of death. They relied on their heaven-defying luck to ascend to the heavens. No matter what kind of predicament they faced, they would be able to get through it safely. The Sky Demon was feared by all in the 9 heavens. Therefore, it would attract some arrogant and righteous people to appear in the world to face the calamity. Now, the various races of the Azure continent had a strong foundation. They no longer wanted stability. Instead, they wanted the power of the world. Ling Xiao only needed to hide in the dark and walk in the light. He could also harvest these so-called people of destiny. When he reached the great Emperor realm, his wings would be fully developed. By then, the Azure mortal world would be the starting point of his immortal conquest. Rock Cliff City, Gu Chao Ci's courtyard. The Empress' expression was still cold and indifferent. However, it was different from before, especially when she glanced at Ling Xiao occasionally. There was a complicated emotion in her eyes. Why are you looking at me like that? Ling Xiao's expression was gentle. There was a sense of transcendence on his face. Why did you block that evil eyes attack? Actually, Gu Chao Ci wanted to ask why he saved her. After all, in her eyes, the Sky Demon was the most evil in the 9 heavens. It represented extreme darkness and evil. Even if Ling Xiao was the reincarnation of a person who had once stood at the peak of the world, wouldn't feelings be a restraint? Although Ling Xiao was backed by the Taigu Ling people, the world was already in chaos, and he would eventually become a concern in the eyes of many powers. Being aroused meant that there was a flaw. What about you? Why did you block that attack for me? Ling Xiao smiled and shook his head before Gu Chao Ci could say anything. Why should we be so wary of each other? It's not like only one person can reach the pinnacle of this world, and the immortal Phoenix ancient dynasty doesn't have any good fortune either. Is it worth it for me to spend so much effort to get close to you? Why? Gu Chao Ci's eyebrows were slightly furrowed. Her pair of phoenix eyes were extremely clear, as if she had not let go of the worries in her heart because of Ling Xiao's words. But only she knew that no matter what, he was already an obsession in her heart. Why? Ling Xiao frowned and reached out his hand to touch Gu Chao Ci's face. Gu Chao Ci instinctively wanted to dodge, but the young man merely tucked a strand of hair in front of her forehead behind her ear and did nothing else. Don't ask why. If you do, it means I want your body. Of course, with Gu Chao Ci's current worries, Ling Xiao would not be too hasty. Otherwise, it would be counterproductive. Just the thought of 90,000 providence was enough to excite him. However, this was probably not the end of it. Why me? Ling Xiao always had countless beauties by his side. With his identity, forget about the immortal Phoenix ancient dynasty. If he wanted, all the forces in the Azure Sky realm would fight to send their goddesses and holy maidens to his bed. However, this young man only gave her his face. Being his fiancée was a promise, but also a shackle. There is something about you that makes me feel at ease. Ling Xiao shook his head. His eyes were deep. Perhaps these words sound very ethereal and hard to believe. But at the same time, he was not lying. Oh, what surprised Ling Xiao was that Gu Chao Ci did not suspect anything. She felt at ease because of the sealed child in her womb. Right? It's getting late. Get some rest. I think the Rocky Cliff ancient city will be lively again tomorrow. After speaking, Ling Xiao turned around to leave. At this moment, his aura was still a little weak, and his figure, which was not very strong, seemed a little lonely. Are you going back? Gu Chao Ci blurted out. But as soon as she spoke, she regretted it. If she didn't go back, was she going to let him stay here for the night? Ling Xiao smiled brightly. He suddenly turned around and pulled Gu Chao Ci into his arms. Since you can't bear it, then I will reluctantly stay. You shameless. In the far west of the Azure Sky, Brahma Holy Land, Yao Guang was dressed in a white robe, blooming with Buddhist light in the night. However, just as she pushed open the ancient door of the Buddhist temple, and was about to leave, she saw a figure standing in front of the door. The golden red kasaya illuminated the world. It was an old monk holding prayer beads with one hand in front of his chest. Silly child. Master. Yao Guang's pretty face froze for a moment before a faint blush appeared on her face. Even her white, bald head had a pink tint to it. For some reason, seeing the trace of disappointment in the old monk's eyes, Yao Guang's Buddhist nature disappeared. She only felt endless shame. I heard that recently, you have been following the footsteps of the Ling people's young master. Why? The old monk sighed softly. Although there was no aura around him, it was as if heaven and earth were connected. Even as he spoke, a Dharma idol appeared in the void of the sacred ground. Golden light splashed everywhere. It was indescribably magical and shocking. Master, I suspect that the Ling people's young master is the one who broke my Bodhi Buddhist heart. I want to find out the truth. Yao Guang put her palms together. Her face was calm. Then why did you return to the Buddhist temple 3 days ago? I can't understand how to eliminate the killing intent and greed. That's why I returned to calm my mind. Then why did you leave the mountain in a hurry today? The old monk's face was expressionless. Buddhist light bloomed in his old eyes, evolving into endless visions. I heard that the sky demon has appeared. I want to go down the mountain to overcome the demon. Yao Guang's eyes trembled slightly. She lowered her head slightly. She was actually panicking. Is it the sky demon or the young master that has appeared? Master. Yao Guang suddenly looked up, only to see that the old monk had turned and stepped into the darkness. If you want to obtain a pure land, you must purify your heart. As your heart purifies, the land of Buddhism will be purified, hell will be purified, and reincarnation will be purified. A Bodhi Buddhist heart has become your obsession. Forget it. You still need to find your Buddhist heart. From today onwards, you will enter the secular world to cultivate. You will experience the tribulation of the secular world and the hatred of 100 generations. Only then will you know what is false in this world. Master, Yao Guang's body trembled slightly. Layers of bloody light bloomed on the red lotus between her eyebrows. It was completely different from the Buddhist charm on her body. It was demonic. Yes. In the end, she did not say anything else. She stepped out and went down the mountain. Layers of golden lotuses appeared under her feet. However, what was strange was that the edges of the golden lotuses were dyed with scarlet light. When Yao Guang's figure was far away, the old monk's figure reappeared on the peak of the sacred ground. Behind him, a bare-shouldered figure stood. It was a 10 feet tall ape with golden hair all over its body. It had a golden hoop on its head and a string of fist-sized golden Buddhist beads on its neck. Master, junior sister, when a lotus is born in the soil, it has Buddhist nature. When it is born in the bone, it has demonic nature. This is her tribulation. The old monk closed his eyes and softly chanted the name of Buddha. However, in the end, he seemed to be unable to bear it. Sai, forget it. Since she has come to Buddhism in this world, it is our karma. Yuan Mia, you go and do something. Master, what is it? In the past, Yao Guang was born in the heart of a glazed lotus. However, this object was corroded by the demonic will. I was afraid that it would be inauspicious. Therefore, I sealed it together with a 9 luminaries relic in the void heavenly lightning in the northwest of the Azure continent. Now that 300 years have passed, I believe that the demonic will within it has disappeared. Take my Buddhist beads and find your 3 junior brothers. Go to the void heavenly lightning together and use the Bodhi Heart Sutra to find this object. Cooperate with the 4 Buddhist beads to open the seal and retrieve it together with the relic. At the crucial moment, you may be able to use it as a contract to suppress Yao Guang's demonic will. 3 junior brothers? The golden-haired Buddha ape's eyes flickered with spiritual light. He was obviously surprised. Even with his status, he had never heard of the origins of these 3 junior brothers. Amitba, when I was traveling in the mortal world, I took in 3 disciples to guard the void heavenly lightning. I gave them the Buddhist beads and Buddhist fate to purify the demonic will in their hearts. Now that 300 years have passed, it is time for them to return to the sacred ground and be given Dharma names. You can use this bead to find their traces. Remember, only when all 4 beads are present can the void heavenly lightning be opened. The Western Buddha Lord softly chanted the name of Buddha and gave the golden ape the 4th Buddhist bead. Then he turned and left. This trip is dangerous. The 2 divine objects will definitely attract countless covetous eyes. Fortunately, Ling people and the World Lord Palace are deterrents. Now, even the supreme martial artists do not dare to act rashly. Everything depends on your luck. Amitabha, I will not disappoint you, master. The golden ape put his palms together and bowed. When he stood up again, his expression had returned to normal. He had heard of the void heavenly lightning. It was said that this place was a forbidden land for living creatures. Heavenly lightning would fall, covering an entire region and frightening all evil. He did not expect that there would be a great opportunity left by his master. 9 Luminaries Relic. Chapter 1007. The next day, the sun rose from the east, and countless ancient boats suddenly appeared in the sky above Rock Cliff City. The sky was covered by large birds. The originally quiet ancient city suddenly became noisy. Numerous figures in various clothes that were overflowing with immortal auras appeared in midair. They were either moving alone or had countless followers behind them, and their faces were covered in a wisp of solemn expressions. Look, it's the golden jade fairy of the celestial sect of bliss. It's a young master of the longevity Lin family, Lin Yuan. I didn't expect him to come. How can he not come? Lin Shun was killed. If the Lin family doesn't come, they will be laughed at. That's the golden Qilin guards of the ancient Qilin divine dynasty. I wonder which prince of the ancient Qilin divine dynasty is here. And the successor of the Saint Emperor Palace. That's Li Ji-Chu, the saintess of the Daotian Academy's Confucian Academy. Oh my God, a supreme secret realm has attracted so many geniuses from the Azure continent. Countless exclamations rose and fell. In the courtyard in the north of the city, Ling Xiao held a cup of tea and looked up at the countless spiritual lights in the sky. His eyes were calm. In the end, the door of the great era had opened, and the chaos had appeared. Everything had begun as he had expected. At the same time, in the main hall of the Void Dao sect, countless disciples looked at the tall figure standing in the square with his hands behind his back with ridicule and surprise. Their eyes flashed with a hint of laughter. Did I hear it wrong? Yang Yuan asked the sect master to go down the mountain to train. I heard that many geniuses from the ancient sects and clans came to Rock Cliff City this morning. Why did Yang Yuan go down the mountain? You're right. Doesn't our senior brother Yang like to be challenged and beaten down without any suspense? That's true. The disciples laughed and laughed, and they did not hide their ridicule of the lonely figure. However, there was no anger on Yang Yuan's face at all. It was as if he was already used to being ridiculed and despised. That was true. Ever since he came to the mountain to cultivate, he had always been bullied and challenged. He had never won a single battle. If he hadn't relied on the ancient stone seal to break through to the honorable realm, he would probably still be wandering around in the outer sect. Master said that this Yang Yuan is quite lucky. Why can't I see it? In the crowd, a young girl dressed in black with a graceful figure frowned. Her long and narrow, beautiful eyes were filled with doubt. Her master was the most mysterious expert in the Nihility Dao sect. Normally, he only swept the floor of the scripture hall and read ancient books. Even Xia Jiming had no idea what his cultivation level was. Occasionally, Xia Jiming would see the sect leader bring wine and discuss Dao with her master. However, he never admitted that he was a member of the Void Dao sect. He only said that he wanted to borrow the land of the Void Dao sect to break away from the secular world and become a free and unfettered person. And Xia Jiming was his only disciple. However, her master, who had always been pure and simple, would often guide Yang Yuan, the publicly recognized trash of the Nihility Dao sect, in his cultivation. Sometimes, he would even secretly give him some treasured scrolls and classics in the scripture hall. This action was extremely absurd to Xia Jiming. She originally thought that her master only felt pity for Yang Yuan. But today, seeing that this trash wanted to go down the mountain to train and compete with the Azure Sky Sex monsters for the fortune in the Supreme Relic, Xia Jiming finally confirmed it. Master, it must be. She felt that this Yang Yuan was pitiful. A young man who wasn't very smart. A trash who had been challenged by all the inner sect disciples of the Nihility Dao sect. Yes, he was quite worthy of sympathy. Yang Yuan, you didn't go for your morning training so early in the morning. You came here to represent the Nihility Dao sect and go down the mountain to compete for the fortune in the secret realm? In front of the main hall, a middle-aged man wearing a dark green Taoist robe frowned and looked at the determined youth in front of him in disbelief. Yesterday, everyone knew that Qi Lanyue had offended Master Ling Xiao and had one of her arms cut off by Elder Qi and brought back to the sect. The Supreme Relic was indeed in the territory of the Nihility Dao sect. Logically speaking, as the owner of this place, the Nihility Dao sect had no reason to not fight. But who was Ling Xiao? The first young master of the Taigu Ling people in hundreds of thousands of years. What good would the Nihility Dao sect have to eat if they offended him? Even if this young master of the Ling people was righteous and upright and wouldn't take this matter to heart, just the admirers behind him would probably be filled with hostility towards the Nihility Dao sect. What was the difference between going down the mountain now and courting death? That's right, this immortal path was all about fighting. However, Yang Yuan going down the mountain represented the face of the Nihility Dao sect. Once he was crushed to death, he would probably become the joke of the entire Nihility domain. Moreover, was there no one else in the Nihility Dao sect? They actually wanted to send a trash disciple down the mountain to snatch the treasure? However, as long as there were disciples with some talent, the Lord of the Void couldn't bear to let them take on such a dangerous task. One couldn't have both the fish and the bear's paw. Of course, protecting one's life was more important. That's right. Disciple has recently broken through to the venerable realm and has gained some insights. I want to go down the mountain to train my Dao heart. Yang Yuan's expression was calm as he bowed towards the Lord of the Void. Senior brother Yang Yuan, if you represent my Nihility Dao sect and go down the mountain, wouldn't the entire Azure Sky realm see my Dao sect as a joke? Beside the Lord of the Void, a young man dressed in white with an arrogant expression sneered. This person was called Su Tianyue, and he was the personal disciple of the sect master. Even though he wasn't old and was only 313 years old, he was already a third-rank Exalt Realm expert, and he could be said to be extremely famous in the Void domain. However, even he didn't dare to rashly leave the mountain now. He was afraid that he would provoke Ling Xiao's hatred and be killed in the secret realm. Senior brother, I'm afraid you don't know what experience is, right? I heard that there were traces of demons in Rockcliffe City. Even the genius of the Lin family, Lin Shun, was silently killed. If it weren't for the appearance of thousands of disciples yesterday, I'm afraid even the young master of the Ling people would have died in the demon's hands. You still dare to go down the mountain? Su Tianyue sneered. He didn't hide the disdain between his brows at all. Although the appearance of the sky demon had attracted countless monsters from the Azure Sky realm, to an ordinary genius like Su Tianyue, these two words were too shocking. It wasn't something he could bear. Slap. However, the moment Su Tianyue finished speaking, the Lord of the Void slapped him hard in the face. Bullshit. Master Ling Xiao's lifespan is the same as the heavens. How could he die? Those thousands of disciples were lucky to have the young master's protection and didn't die in the demon's hands. Yes, master disciple knows his mistake. Su Tianyue's face was gloomy as he looked at Yang Yuan with resentment and anger. Su Shidi, since we cultivators are on this path, we should compete with the heavens, the earth, and people. Otherwise, how can we climb to the peak of the great Tao if we are afraid of the slightest thing? Seeing this scene, Yang Yuan sighed softly in his heart and said indifferently, there seemed to be a divine radiance blooming around him, causing the Lord of the Void and Xiaojimeng, who was hidden in the crowd, to narrow their eyes slightly. I didn't expect this fool to have such a Tao heart. However, when these words fell into the ears of the disciples, it caused a burst of undisguised laughter. I didn't expect Senior Brother Yang Yuan to have such a deep understanding, compete with the heavens and the earth. Senior Brother, it's early in the morning and you're drinking so much. Su Tianyue sneered, killing intent appearing in his eyes. Obviously, he didn't expect that this trash would dare to refute him in public. Su Shidi, you must be joking. Although it's comfortable to curl up in a corner, I can't bear to see how weak I am. Sect Master, please let me down the mountain. Yang Yuan was unmoved and bowed to the Lord of the Void again. All right, stop fooling around and go for your morning exercises. Yang Yuan, your Tao heart is commendable, but your strength is too weak. Go back and cultivate. The Lord of the Void waved his hand impatiently. Sect Master, why don't you call me to wake Brother Yang up? Su Tianyue's voice was clear as he walked in front of Yang Yuan. Brother Yang, since you were so ambitious, why don't you spar with me first? Let's see where your courage comes from in the life and death arena. Chapter 1008. Senior Brother Yang Yuan, you dare to compete in this world. Are you afraid of small Tao sect disciple like me? In front of the main hall, Su Tianyue smiled disdainfully. He didn't take this senior brother who had been beaten by thousands of people seriously at all. Almost everyone who was able to step into the Tao sect's inner sect had done so by stepping on Yang Yuan. Such a piece of trash who could be bullied by anyone was actually talking about the philosophy of the great Tao with him, the strongest genius of the Void Tao sect. Although Su Tianyue's talent wasn't the best in the Azure world. However, he was the only person in the Void Tao sect who had mastered the Void Spirit Holy Seal in the past 1,000 years. The last person to master this ancient classic was the current Lord of the Void, Su Mo. As for his relationship with the sect master, how could a villain stepping stone not have any background? Uncle and nephew. It's over. He's showing off too much. Su Shidi is going to fight Yang Yuan in the life and death arena. Brother Yang doesn't have to go out to train anymore. Su Shidi may be young, but he's already a third-stage exalted realm expert. Yang Yuan can't even defeat a god emperor. How can he be Su Shidi's match? Sigh. If Yang Yuan is beaten to death, who are we going to mock in the future? Yeah, there's going to be one less joy in life. The disciples laughed and ridiculed without restraint. It was as if in their eyes, Yang Yuan was a joke, a topic for their entertainment. Junior brother, we're from the same sect. We should cut the crap. Do you dare or not? Su Tianyue glanced at Xiaojimeng in the crowd. His expression became even more arrogant and cold. Originally, with Su Tianyue's status, it should be a blessing for any girl in the sect. However, Xiaojimeng was an exception. Not only did this young girl not put him in her eyes, even his uncle Su Mo strictly forbade him from having other thoughts. From his uncle's words, he could roughly tell that Xiaojimeng's master didn't seem to be a member of the Void Tao sect, and his background was rather great. Even this Xiaojimeng had a mysterious background. The most infuriating thing was that such a beautiful and talented goddess would often appear by Yang Yuan's side. Could it be that these goddesses and saintesses all have some special fetishes? Otherwise, why would they always like those lowly, ordinary-looking, and weak good-for-nothings? Today, in front of the goddess, I, Su Tianyue, am going to show off my manly prowess and completely trample this Yang Yuan under my feet. I'll let her know who the true candidate for a Tao companion is. Sect leader, if I win, will I be able to go down the mountain and fight for the secret realm's fortune? Yang Yuan took a deep breath, and a fighting spirit suddenly appeared on his face. Seeing this scene, the expressions of everyone in the mountain froze and then burst into laughter. What did he say? He wants to win? If he can win, I'll lie down and pee from now on. I guess he can't even take one move from Su Shidi. Not necessarily. After all, Brother Yang is also a venerable realm expert. At least, 1.5 moves, right? Yes, yes, yes. Brother Yang is also a veteran. Although he has never won, you guys are underestimating him too much. Yang Yuan, have you thought it through? Do you want to fight with Tian Yu in the life and death arena? The Lord of the Void frowned slightly and glanced in the direction of the distant mountain. At this moment, he could feel that there was an extremely obscure aura there. In the entire Void Dao sect, the only person who cared about Yang Yuan's life and death was probably that person in the scripture depository. Actually, the Lord of the Void wasn't very clear about this person's background. In fact, in the past 300 years in the Void Dao sect, he had never seen him fight. However, every time he encountered a bottleneck in his cultivation, he could always find inspiration to break through from the senior. In his memory, he had only gone down the mountain once and brought back Xia Jimeng. At that time, Xia Jimeng was still an infant, and this guardian elder was seriously injured and covered in blood. Since then, he had been drinking tea, reading books, and teaching Xia Jimeng cultivation in the scripture depository. In the blink of an eye, 300 years had passed. Now, Xia Jimeng's cultivation had already stepped into the venerable realm. However, she rarely fought, so no one knew how powerful she was. Sect Master, please grant me my wish. Yang Yuan was fearless, and his determined face revealed a trace of determination. He had to go to the supreme secret realm, because there might be opportunities that belong to the reincarnation divine abode. Only by finding the remaining 2 seals would he have a chance to find the legendary heavenly secret realm and open the myriad weapon Dao scripture. Yes, Yang Yuan's talent was poor, but Elder Yu had said that the battle for the immortal path was a battle of fate and a battle of temperament. Talent was very important, but since ancient times, apart from talent, those who could stand at the top were all tenacious and ambitious people. After obtaining that stone seal, Yang Yuan's physique had undergone earth-shattering changes. Therefore, in Yang Yuan's opinion, as long as he resolutely walked down this path, he would have the capital to compete with the entire Azure world sooner or later. The Sky Demon was feared by the 9 heavens. The Taigu Ling people were also lofty mountains. However, if he was afraid and stopped moving forward, how could he compete with heaven and earth in the future and go against heaven's will? All right, since you made up your mind, then go. The Lord of the Void nodded indifferently, then turned to look at Su Tianyue. Tianyue, it's enough to determine the winner in a battle between fellow disciples. There's no need to kill. Of course, even in the eyes of the Lord of the Void, although Yang Yuan had changed a lot, his lofty aspirations surprised him. However, a first-grade Exalted Realm cultivator had no chance of winning against a third-grade Exalted Realm cultivator. Needless to say, the 2 of them were trash, and the other was a proud son of heaven. Yes, Sect Master. Su Tianyue licked his lips, and a sinister smile appeared on his face. If he couldn't kill him, he could at least beat him half to death, right? After all, today he would let Xia Jimeng know that he, Su Tianyue, was the true number 1 person in the Void Dao sect. Su Shidi, please. Yang Yuan stepped forward and walked to an ancient stone platform in the center of the square. This stone platform was the place where the disciples of the Void Dao sect resolved their conflicts. Ordinary forces would not interfere with the sect conflicts. After all, this kind of conflict would only make the disciples work harder to cultivate, eliminate the weak, and continue the legacy. Brother Yang, it's not too late to regret it now. Su Tianyue's figure flashed, and his body bloomed with spiritual light. He floated onto the platform like a god descending to the mortal world. Great! Below the platform, the disciples of the sect immediately clapped their hands and cheered loudly. Brother Yang, I won't take advantage of you. I'll suppress my cultivation to the first-grade Exalted Realm. If you can take my palm, I'll consider it your win. Su Tianyue smiled confidently and spoke with contempt. In his opinion, Yang Yuan was simply an ant that he could crush with a wave of his hand. This isn't too good. Su Shidi, let's have a fair fight. Arrogant. You have to take this palm of mine first. Su Tianyue snorted coldly. His body turned into an afterimage, and a golden light appeared on his palm. It instantly pierced through the void and pressed toward Yang Yuan's chest. Chapter 1009. Buzz. An ear-piercing buzzing sound could be heard from thousands of miles away. Su Tianyue's palm was overflowing with golden light as Tao inscriptions were formed. Even though he had suppressed his cultivation level to the first level of the exalted realm, his palm still contained terrifying power. With Yang Yuan's strength, powerful. He's too powerful. Su Shidi is really the most talented person in the Void Dao sect. Let alone Yang Yuan. Even I would be torn apart by his palm. It's too terrifying. I'm afraid that in less than 10 years, Su Shidi will be qualified to be one of the top 100 monstrous talents in Qingsan. However, while the crowd was shouting and licking Yang Yuan's boots, Yang Yuan remained unmoved on the battle stage. He didn't even try to dodge. Could it be that Yang Yuan was paralyzed with fear? Quick, smell it. What's with the smell of feces? You brought this upon yourself. Boom. In the end, Su Tianyue's palm landed with a loud bang. Golden light fell and filled the entire fighting ring. The void collapsed, and layers of cracks spread in all directions. Surprisingly, the scene of Yang Yuan flying backward did not happen. In fact, there was not even the sound of bones breaking and blood spurting out. What's going on? Everyone's eyes narrowed. Even sect leader Su Wu's face flashed with astonishment. With his strength, he naturally saw the two figures standing motionlessly on the battle platform. But how is that possible? Although Su Tianyue hadn't used his true trump card just now, with his strength, it wouldn't be surprising at all for him to suppress a trash like Yang Yuan with a single palm. Could it be that he had given Yang Yuan some secret treasure to protect himself? Buzz. The mountain wind raged and blew away the sky. In the next moment, there was a series of gasps in the square. At this moment, everyone could see that in the center of the fighting ring, Yang Yuan calmly stretched out a palm and held Su Tianyue's hand tightly. There was not a trace of spiritual energy around him, and he did not even take half a step back. This trash actually completely relied on the power of the fleshly body to block Su Tianyue's spirit palm. This was simply ridiculous. In the crowd, Xia Jiming's eyes also flashed with surprise. She did not expect that this disciple of the Void Dao sect, who had been bullied in the past, would give her such a big surprise. No wonder the old man said that Yang Yuan had a lot of luck on him. Now, it seemed that this young man was not simple. In the depths of the mountain peak, a black-robed figure stood with his hands behind his back. He calmly looked at the dispute below, and his eyes seemed to flash with a wisp of complicated meaning. What a similar experience. Rise from humble beginnings and amaze the world with a single brilliant feat. From the moment he saw Yang Yuan, he saw a familiar figure in him. Unknowingly, Jimeng was almost 300 years old. Little friend, if you were still alive, you would have crushed an arrow by now, right? Supreme killing power and heaven-defying luck. However, you met a bad person and were persecuted by others. Although I am weak and powerless to avenge you, I will definitely do my best to protect your bloodline. When she steps into the Saint Realm, I will tell her about her origins, as well as what happened 300 years ago. The black-robed old man looked at the sky with a sorrowful expression. Once, he had a son who was talented and had a flawless Dao heart. However, during his training, he was killed by a monster of the Ghost Clan. This grudge should have been avenged by him, but he still had a sect behind him and had many concerns. Moreover, the older generation could not interfere in the battle of the younger generation. The path of immortality was dangerous. It was that little friend who had a deep relationship with his only son. After learning about this matter, he went to the Ghost Realm in the Far East alone as a God Emperor and killed the monster of the Ghost Clan, shocking the entire Azure firmament. In the blink of an eye, the past had already been reincarnated. The entire mountain nihility suddenly fell into a strange silence. Everyone looked at the calm Yang Yuan, whose clothes fluttered in the wind, and their eyes were filled with shock and fear. Was it an illusion? Or did Su Shidi not really use his strength at all? Or was Su Shidi so broad-minded that he was moved by Yang Yuan's foolish ambition and wanted to fulfill his wish? Yes, that must be it. Su Shidi, you are so kind. Junior brother, one palm strike. Yang Yuan's eyes were indifferent, and there was an extremely gentle smile on his face. Ever since he had attained the greater success Golden Body, he had long felt the terrifying power contained in his body. This power was enough to split mountains and earth and reverse yin and yang. Therefore, from the beginning, he did not take Su Tianyue seriously. His enemy should be the true top youth of the azure firmament. Su Tianyue was just a small stumbling block for him to reach the peak of the world. You cheated. You must have a protective treasure on you. Su Tianyue's face was ferocious, and a hint of gloominess flashed between his brows. Then, under everyone's dumbfounded gazes, spiritual light suddenly surged from his other palm, transforming into a long river that poured down with a loud rumble. Vaguely, a palm print gradually condensed in the sea of spirit river and pressed towards Yang Yuan's chest. A void intent quietly surged out, and the pressure of a third-rank venerable realm expert was no longer concealed. Su Tianyue did not hold back at all in this palm strike. Before Yang Yuan could react, the lightning had already struck out. He could not stand it. How could a trash block his attack? This kind of humiliation could only be eliminated with his death. Su Shidi, why are you in such a hurry? No. Could it be that Junior Brother is not trying to fulfill Yang Yuan's wish? Is Su Shidi's move a sneak attack? Yang Yuan secretly has the means to fight against Su Shidi, and he deliberately pretends to be weak. Shameless, simply shameless to the extreme. Su Shidi has the demeanor of an immortal. Even if it was a sneak attack, it would only be a small punishment. What's wrong with that? That's true. In that case, Yang Yuan is more shameless. The shock on everyone's faces quickly dissipated, and a hint of sarcasm appeared on their faces. It was obvious that even if Yang Yuan had displayed enough terrifying physical strength, no one believed that he could survive Su Tianyue's void spiritual seal. Bah, pretending to be a pig to eat a tiger, he deserved to die. Boom. This time, even though Yang Yuan's divine body had been formed, he was caught off guard and was pushed back by Su Tianyue's palm print. He fell to the edge of the fighting ring. However, before the disciples could open their mouths to ridicule him, the young man whose clothes were torn apart and who seemed to be in a sorry state actually stood up unsteadily. Moreover, where Su Tianyue's palm print landed, there was no injury at all. A wisp of golden light quietly bloomed around Yang Yuan, and a trace of anger finally appeared on his face. Su Shidi, we are from the same sect. This kind of sneak attack is really shameless. Su Tianyue lowered his head, looked at his palm, and then looked at Yang Yuan's broad and muscular chest, and swallowed hard. Could it be that I have cultivated a false immortal? Chapter 10:10. Since Junior Brother is so anxious, then I have to be serious. Yang Yuan took a deep breath and suddenly stepped forward. However, before his figure could land in front of Su Tianyue, he saw this proud son of heaven of the Nihility Tao sect suddenly kneel on the ground. Woo, I admit defeat. I admit defeat. Senior brother, don't hit me. Please don't hit me. At this moment, Su Tianyue thought that his strongest trump card could not shake Yang Yuan at all. Once the latter got serious, would he beat him to death on the battle stage? After all, he had bullied Yang Yuan a lot because of his status. Now that the latter had grown to such a level, once he had resentment in his heart, he would most likely be carried off the battle stage today. Villains, other than having a bit of status, had always had bad temperaments. They liked to show off and were afraid of death. To put it simply, their Taoist heart would shatter with a touch. Yang Yuan's golden light had just bloomed when it dimmed. He nodded slightly and turned to look at the Lord of the Void. Sect leader, that's right, you can go down the mountain. But remember, you must not provoke the young master of the Ling people. And the two of you follow Yang Yuan down the mountain. After all, The Void Zone is the territory of the Void Dao sect. If no disciple comes out, I'm afraid we will be laughed at. The Lord of the Void narrowed his eyes and seemed to have a guess in his heart. Just now, when Yang Yuan's spiritual power was activated, his body seemed to have bloomed with the golden light of the Tao. Obviously, this kid must have cultivated some terrifying body tempering technique. With his status and background, it was impossible for him to come into contact with such a level of fortune. It was most likely given by that person. Thus, he could not deliberately make things difficult for him. Yes, Yang Yuan bowed and turned to go down the mountain. Wherever he passed, all the disciples of the Void Dao sect stepped aside. Their eyes flickered, and there was an unconcealable respect on their faces. It turned out that this brother Yang was the true genius of the Dao sect. Behind him, the other two personal disciples of the sect master followed closely. However, there was no longer a trace of arrogance on their faces. Senior brother Yang Yuan, strengthen our Dao sect. It was unknown who opened his mouth to shout, but soon after, the entire sky above the Dao sect suddenly rumbled. Senior brother Yang Yuan, strengthen my Dao sect. In the past few days, the matter of Qi Lan Yu's arm being chopped off had swept away the prestige of the Nihility Dao sect. Now that the mystic realm had opened, the top geniuses of Azure would gather. As long as Yang Yuan could shine during this trip, the Void Dao sect would regain its dignity. Senior brother Yang Yuan, you dare to challenge the heavens with your mortal body. You are the backbone of our Dao sect, the backbone of the immortal path. You see, no matter where it is, the human heart is always so realistic. Only strength is the foundation to control everything. Jimeng, you've just made a breakthrough, so you should also go down the mountain to gain experience. Remember what I've taught you. You're a fool if you do something you know is impossible. Preserving your life is the truth of the immortal path. An old voice suddenly sounded in Xia Jimeng's ears. Then she turned her head and looked at the black-robed figure in the distance. A trace of playfulness appeared in her eyes. Jimeng, this young man's temperament is extremely good, now that he has a good fortune or an immortal Dao companion. Humph, I knew it. Xia Jimeng snorted coldly, and her figure suddenly disappeared on the spot. What was surprising was that the many disciples of the Nihility Dao sect beside her didn't notice it at all. Outside Rock Cliff City, endless spiritual light bloomed in the sky. Layers of Taoist aura swept over from all directions, turning into ancient boats and divine buildings that descended from the sky. At this moment, 100 miles away from the city, two figures stepped on the clouds and stood in the sky. They were two beautiful women in luxurious clothes. Their hair was black and their eyes were like autumn water. The older woman was dressed in a red robe. Her figure was graceful, and her immortal face contained a wisp of domineering aura. The remaining young girl was dressed in a white dress. She looked shy, and her eyes were clear. Her temperament was outstanding and holy, making people want to take pity on her. Aunt, isn't the Xin Yuan clan unable to leave the extreme north? The white-robed young girl's red lips were pursed slightly. It was obvious that she was reserved because she had just been born. Wei Yang, you must always remember that the Xin Yuan clan is the emperor clan of the human race. Now that your aunt has returned to the clan and is in charge of Xin Yuan, the Xin Yuan people no longer have to curl up in the extreme north. The red-robed woman smiled sweetly, and her imperial aura was awe-inspiring. Oh, Aunt, I heard from Father that Aunt has the human emperor's bloodline and is the most talented person in the Xin Yuan people. But her cultivation realm, Xin Yuan Wei Yang was clearly puzzled. According to the elders of the clan, the human emperor's bloodline was the most powerful bloodline of the human race, and it was passed down from the Xin Yuan ancestors. Once this bloodline was awakened, one would be able to become an emperor without being shackled. But why was Aunt's cultivation only at the half-saint level? You'll have to ask your good uncle about this. All right, we've arrived at Rock Cliff City. After meeting your cousin, I'll return to the Xin Yuan people. I heard that your cousin is very handsome. Follow him and cultivate well. The future of the Xin Yuan people depends on you. The red-robed woman smiled playfully. Xin Yuan Weiyang's pretty face turned even redder, and he said shyly, "Aunt, ha ha ha, Weiyang, you're too weak. Your aunt said that you're not allowed to return to the extreme north until you reach the Saint Realm." The red-robed woman shook her head, held the young girl's hand, and stepped into Rock Cliff City. Meanwhile, in the courtyard of the city, Ling Xiao was calmly looking at the figures in front of him with a gentle smile. The young master of the Longevity Lin clan, Lin Yuan, was at the 6th stage of the Exalt Realm. He had an imposing appearance and dual Dao laws of sword and gale. Unfortunately, he didn't have any providence and was destined to be the background of an era. The second prince of the ancient Qilin divine dynasty, Guyu, was at the 6th stage of the Exalt Realm. He had the Crimson Qilin bloodline and 5,000 providence. He had a resolute face and a burly figure, and he had comprehended the Dao laws of metal and extreme yang. On the other hand, Li Jichu from the Daotian Academy had a beautiful face and a graceful figure. Her white robe shone brightly, and she looked somewhat otherworldly. The first disciple of the Confucian Academy cultivated the righteous energy, and there seemed to be a god 3 feet in front of her that prevented evil from entering. She was at the 6th stage of the Exalt Realm. Although she hadn't comprehended any Dao laws and didn't have a divine body, Ling Xiao felt that Li Jichu was the most terrifying among the 3 of them. 2,000 providence was somewhat baffling. Could it be that one of the people Li Jichu was involved with was the true destined one? Behind the 3 of them stood many elites and disciples of the ancient clans. At that moment, their eyes were filled with respect as they looked at Ling Xiao. "Greetings, Master Ling Xiao. Young master, are your injuries getting better?" The second prince of the ancient Qilin divine dynasty, Guyu, smiled and took out a spirit elixir from his interspatial ring. He handed it to Ling Xiao and said, "Young master, this is the most precious treasure of the ancient Qilin divine dynasty, the Qilin blood elixir. Perhaps it will help you with your injuries." "Huh, thank you. It's already a great fortune for all of you to be here. Otherwise, I wouldn't have been able to kill the sky demon by myself." As Ling Xiao spoke, he put away the Qilin blood elixir and shook his head with a sigh. "The title of young master is too mundane. Cultivators of my generation fight for the path of immortality. Background and identity are just external factors. I was lucky to be born in the Ling people, but I'm just a pawn on the path of immortality." "Huh, young. Lord Ling Xiao is indeed as gentle as the rumors say. Now that the sky demon has appeared and is wreaking havoc on the world, as elites of the Azure continent, we naturally have the responsibility to uphold justice. Young master, please lead us to kill the sky demon." Guyu spoke in a righteous and dignified manner, which made Ling Xiao raise his eyebrows and smile wickedly. "Oh." Chapter 10:11. Young master, can you tell us about what happened yesterday? In front of the crowd, Li Jichu's face was cold and indifferent. There was a trace of seriousness between her brows. Logically speaking, a supreme secret realm should not be too tempting for her. Moreover, Ling Xiao and Gu Chaoci were both there, so the crowd had little chance of getting the treasure. However, she cultivated the righteous path of Confucianism, and slaying demons was her training. Moreover, the more demons she killed, the more tenacious her Dao heart would be, until she had an invincible belief. Although the sky demon was feared by the 9 heavens, as long as she could kill him with her sword, she would be able to cultivate righteousness forever. Yesterday, Sai. Ling Xiao looked deeply at Lin Yuan. Yesterday, I did not hear anything at first. I was drinking tea with Zhao Chasi in the courtyard when I suddenly felt a demonic aura approaching. I did not expect it to be the sky demon. Fortunately, there were many disciples of the righteous path in the city, so we worked together to force the demon back. Young master, why are you so sure that the demon is the sky demon? Li Jichu frowned, but Ling Zhao's expression turned cold. Her beautiful eyes flashed with panic. I mean, I heard that you know the demon? That's right. When young Master Shui and I first saw the demon in the Heavenlywood region, we did not see his face clearly. Fellow Taoist Wenren was also there, but young Master Shui and I both felt that the demon might be hiding among the people. Ling Zhao's expression was cold. Behind him, Gu Chaoxiai, dressed in a red imperial robe, pushed open the door and glanced at everyone coldly. Praising the Empress. Everyone's expression changed, especially Gu Chaoxiai's lazy expression and messy black hair. They could not help but feel some ripples in their hearts. Unparalleled, otherworldly beauty. This praising the Empress was truly worthy of being Qing Tsang's publicly acknowledged #1 beauty. It was no wonder that Ji Erhard and Shi Hao Tian were willing to go against Master Ling Xiao for her. Femme fatale. Oh, it's so noisy early in the morning. Gu Chaoxiai shot a cold glance at Ling Xiao. She stretched her arms and walked back into the room. Were we just now? Ling Xiao shook his head and smiled. His gaze returned to Li Zichu, his expression extremely gentle. Li Zichu was also extremely beautiful, and even her temperament was similar to Gu Chaoxiai's. 2000 Providence was tasteless, but it was a pity to throw it away. If it weren't for her identity, Ling Xiao wouldn't even bother with her. The Dao Tian Academy, one of the top forces in Qing Tsang, suppressed a demonic bone. Now that the Dao Tian Academy's master was about to appear and preach, Ling Xiao should prepare some methods to obtain the demonic bone. Young master, you said that the demon is hiding among the crowd. Yes. I already guessed that since the sky demon was able to grow to such a level, there must be someone helping him. Yesterday, the demon was trapped in Rock Cliff City. At the last moment, a sage's aura arrived and saved him. Ling Xiao sighed and seemed to blame himself. Sigh, it's all my fault. My strength is mediocre, and I can't kill the sky demon alone. Young master, since the sky demon has an expert following him, why don't we use this opportunity to gather the strongest experts in our race and kill this demon here? Lin Yuan's tone was serious, and sword intent seemed to ripple in his eyes. No, this demon is extremely cunning and is extremely good at disguising himself. He even has connections with the Divine Spirit Crown, Prince Ji Ying, and the others. This sage was the last to attack. It's obvious that he doesn't want to reveal his identity. If the strong cultivators of our race come, this demon will probably hide himself again. At least now, he wants to enter the arcane land and avenge Ji Ying and the others. He will definitely appear to kill me. When that time comes, young master, you mean? Before Ling Xiao could finish speaking, the prodigies looked at Ling Xiao with even more respect. Lord Ling Xiao was planning to use himself as bait to lure the demon. How brave and righteous was that? At the very least, with the temperament of the people present, even if they wanted to kill the demon, they wouldn't dare to fight the sky demon alone. Young master, you're so righteous. Compared to Lord Ling Xiao, we are indeed trash. Bah, are you worthy of being compared to young master? Instantly, the courtyard was filled with exclamations and sighs. Young master, did you just say that this demon is related to the Divine Spirit Crown Prince Jing? The second prince of Gulin frowned. His eyes were filled with killing intent. That's right. The person who appeared yesterday is called Qin Shen. As far as I know, he is Ji Ying's sworn brother. Ling Xiao nodded indifferently. Everyone's faces were filled with shock again. Could it be that young master had already guessed when he killed Ji Ying? That Ji Ying deserves to die. Young master, could it be that the sage who attacked yesterday is a strong cultivator from the Divine Spirit dynasty? It's hard to say. Ling Xiao shook his head slightly. There was a sinister smile at the corner of his mouth. In the end, this celestial dynasty was on the verge of destruction. It wouldn't be long before countless strong cultivators from the Azure Empire descended upon the Divine Spirit realm to find out the relationship between the Sky Demon and this dynasty. What? You said you have no relationship with the Sky Demon? That Sky Demon Qin Shun is your Crown Prince's sworn brother. Isn't that a strong enough relationship? This is probably the end of this dynasty's legacy. Young master, when the secret realm opens, we are willing to be at your disposal. That's right. It is our duty to slay demons. Looking at the excited crowd in front of him, Ling Zhao's face was filled with a gentle smile. However, there was no trace of emotion in his eyes. Slay demons? Duty to slay? My saber has long been unbearable. Boom! However, just as everyone was sighing in amazement, there was a sudden buzzing sound in Rock Cliff City. A wisp of coldness quietly swept over. Even the faces of Li Zichu and the others were filled with astonishment. What a terrifying coldness! Is there a fight between strong cultivators? Everyone was stunned. They turned to look at the source of the coldness. Ling Xiao had already stood up and disappeared on the spot. Let's go. Let's go take a look. The door to the courtyard only opened after everyone had left. Gu Chaoxiai looked up at the sky with a cold expression. She did not say anything. She was extremely familiar with this coldness, but she also felt an inexplicable fear. Logically speaking, with Gu Chaoxiai's strength and status, she should not be compared to a destitute mistress of an ancient clan. However, there was a very strong sense of uneasiness. It was as if this woman, named Yi Qingchan, who had comprehended the Tao law of extreme ice, had once taken everything that belonged to her. Now, she seemed to have returned. Boom! Sigh, this little girl is quite stubborn. In Rock Cliff City, 3 men in red with heavy makeup surrounded Yi Qingchan with sinister smiles. Although these people's auras were all in the Venerate realm, there was an extremely weak feeling. Even so, with Yi Qingchan's current strength, it was still quite difficult for her to face 3 Venerate realm cultivators at the same time. Little girl, I see that you are extremely beautiful and have fate with my celestial sect of pleasure. Why don't you follow me back to the sect and live happily in the mortal world? The 3 of them sneered and surrounded Yi Qingchan in the center. Scram! However, at this moment, there was no trace of panic on Yi Qingchan's face. There was even killing intent in her eyes. Chapter 10:12. Io, this little temper of yours is really lovable. Little girl, I can tell at a glance that you are no longer a virgin. Why are you still pretending to be pure in front of me? The 3 men in red mocked her coldly. There was no hesitation on their faces. They had no choice. Yi Qingchan's cultivation was only at the 9th grade Divine Emperor realm. She had yet to enter the Honorable realm. With her cultivation level and age, she did not look like someone from a reputable sect. Moreover, with the strength of the Celestial Harmony sect, they were not invincible in the entire Azure continent. However, there were only a few hundred sects and clans that the 3 of them were wary of. This time, the Saint of the Celestial Harmony sect had come personally. With the Saint's talent, who in a younger generation would not give her face? It was not that the Saint's combat strength was terrifying. It was just that the Saint's subordinates were countless. Offending the Saint was equivalent to offending 1, 2, 3, 4, at least 8 or 9 young masters and successors. How many people would have the guts to do so? If they did not show off now, when would they? They are the disciples of the Celestial Harmony sect. Many people had already gathered in the crowd to watch the show. However, at this moment, the crowd was not looking at Yi Qingchan. Instead, they were looking at the 3 disciples of the Celestial Harmony sect with a hint of mockery. It was normal that the 3 of them did not know Yi Qingchan. After all, she had just appeared in the world and was not well known. However, to the many prodigies who had arrived in Rock Cliff City yesterday, this young girl was extremely familiar. She was the servant of the Lord Ling Xiao, the new master of the Foliaceae, Yi Qingchan. When Ling Xiao appeared in the world, he had killed the master of the Foliaceae and a heavenly supreme old ancestor for this young girl. In an instant, the name Yi Qingchan resounded in the entire Azure continent. Although in the eyes of the world, Gu Chaoxiai was Master Ling Zhao's forbidden area, Yi Qingchan was not someone who could be trifled with. These 3 things that were neither male nor female were probably going to die today. AI, I know Yi Qingchan's identity, so I won't remind you. Who asked the immortal sect of bliss to be so evil? They cultivate the Tao of yin and yang, which is despicable. Although the saintess Qiu Yishui of Huanxiang was beautiful, graceful, and skillful. The saintess of Huanxiang had a beautiful face. Eh, why did she suddenly feel a little greedy as she spoke? F***CK. No, senior brother Cheng. Why do I feel like there's something wrong with the way they look at us? Could it be that this little girl has some background? Oomph. What was his background? Could it be that she was the woman of young Master Ling people? Ha 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 ha. The three of them looked at each other and shook their heads. The young man, surnamed Cheng, suddenly stretched out his hand and touched Yi Qingchan's beautiful face. However, right at this moment, Yi Qingchan's eyes suddenly transformed into a wisp of deep blue, and a great momentum capable of freezing the heavens, and the earth descended with a loud rumble, completely sealing off the entire space. A cold sword of Tao Law suddenly condensed in her hand, and it easily cut off the hand that was reaching toward her. Everyone was stunned, and even the disciple, surnamed Cheng, seemed to be a little dazed. Then, he let out a shrill scream. You, how dare you hurt my senior brother Cheng? You're courting death. The remaining two people were stunned, and a vast spiritual aura immediately surrounded them. However, before they could take a step forward, they suddenly felt that time and space had frozen, and there seemed to be a gentle breeze blowing behind them. Then, the two of them felt a pain in their chests, and a bright smile seemed to bloom on the face of the girl in front of them. The coldness between heaven and earth receded, as if winter had dissipated, and there was only warmth in the air. The two of them lowered their heads and looked at the two palms that had pierced through their chests. Their lips trembled slightly, but in the end, they were unable to say a word before they were ruthlessly thrown aside by a huge force. Only the disciple, surnamed Cheng, was left. His mouth was agape, and his face was already pale as he looked at the black-robed figure who had appeared out of nowhere. You? Who are you? Being able to kill two venerable realm cultivators so easily, this young man's identity must be terrifying. Black clothes, otherworldly, and unparalleled immortal appearance. Could this be the young master of the Ling people? Although there were many rumors about Ling Xiao in the current Azure Sky world, in summary, they were nothing more than righteous, gentle, and peerless immortal appearance. To put it simply, the word handsome could be used throughout his life. Even though this disciple of the immortal sect of joy had seen countless handsome young men, this was the first time he had seen such an otherworldly appearance. In the entire Azure Sky, other than the young Master Shui who rarely appeared in the world, it seemed that only the young master of the Ling people had such an immortal appearance. Gulp! You even dare to touch my people? Ling Zhao's expression was gentle, but the coldness in his eyes had already frozen the void, and there were faint signs of it shattering. Young Master Ling, we don't know. The young man, surnamed Cheng, staggered to the ground and quietly crushed the jade talisman in his hand. However, before he could finish speaking, he saw the black-robed figure had already stepped forward and stood in front of him. It's fine. You don't need to know. With that, Ling Xiao suddenly raised his foot and was about to step on the young man's head. Buzz! Right at this moment, an ear-piercing buzzing sound suddenly came from above the void. Following that, a seductive woman in a smoky dress descended from the sky and landed about 10 feet in front of Ling Xiao. A gentle breeze blew, lifting her black hair. Her clothes were transparent and cool, contrasting with her snow-white skin, making her look extremely alluring. Young Master Ling, Qiu Yixue glanced at the two corpses on the ground, then turned to look at the young man, surnamed Cheng, who had long been paralyzed with fear. Her beautiful face suddenly bloomed with a smile. Young Master, why don't you give Yixue some face? This is most likely a misunderstanding. Please spare my senior brother's life. Yixue is willing to pay any price. As long as the young master wants, Yixue is willing to give it. With that, Qiu Yixue purposely straightened her body, and her fragrant tongue was full of charm. In fact, around her, there seemed to be a trace of spiritual light blooming, dense and fragrant, making one's mouth dry. Hiss! Suddenly, there was a burst of exclamations on the ancient street. Many of the ancient clan's prodigies looked at Ling Xiao with a trace of envy in their eyes. This was a hint, a blatant hint. If Master Ling Xiao were to relent slightly, Qiu Yishui would probably rush to the heavens without a care for her own safety. Scram! However, just as the scene flashed in front of everyone's eyes and their bodies trembled, they suddenly heard a crisp slap. Qiu Yishui didn't even have time to react before she felt her body lighten, and she fell 100 feet away. Immediately, 5 clear palm prints appeared on her enchanting face. Everyone's expression froze. When they looked again, Ling Xiao had already stepped out and stomped Cheng's head into a pool of blood. Gulp! Master Ling Xiao. Qiu Yishui's beautiful eyes narrowed slightly as she stood up and looked at Ling Xiao. At this moment, there was obvious resentment on her face. However, when she saw the coldness in Ling Xiao's eyes, she only felt a chill rise from the bottom of her heart. Her delicate body trembled slightly, and she almost peed on the spot. Ha ha! The young master is indeed as decisive and fearless as the rumors say. Your celestial beauty is unparalleled. After meeting you today, Yishui's Dao heart can't help but ripple a little. I wonder if Yishui would be fortunate enough to follow by the young master's side. Qiu Yishui carefully concealed the coldness in her heart, and a bright smile bloomed on her face again. Chapter 10:13. Ling Zhao's eyes did not waver at all when he saw the seductive look on the holy maiden's face. A mere supremacy actually dared to seduce his soul. She was courting death. You? Are you worthy of being my follower? Who gave you the courage? Ling Zhao's expression was calm, but his words made Qiu Yishui's face turn cold, and her Dao heart almost collapsed. With her beauty and the unique seduction technique of the immortal sect, she was unable to shake this young man's soul at all. Unknowingly, cold sweat had already formed on Qiu Yishui's head. Plop! Young master, please calm down. Yishui has overstepped her boundaries. This is Yishui's numinous treasure. Please forgive Yishui, young master. Qiu Yishui knelt on the ground with a plop, her eyes filled with fear. Originally, although she was afraid of Ling Xiao, all men in this world were playthings in her eyes. However, this Ling people's young master did not react to her seduction technique, even though he was young and vigorous. Such a person was either born with a disability, or his divine sense was so powerful that it was beyond her reach. If this happens again, they will end up like this. Ling Zhao's eyes were cold as he put the Cosmos bag in Qiu Yishui's hand into his ring. Then, he held Yi Qingchan's hand and walked towards Gu Chaoxiai's courtyard. At this moment, seeing the two of them, who looked like an immortal couple, many sect fairies clenched their fists tightly. Their legs trembled, and their eyes were hazy. They longed to be Yi Qingchan and be protected by Sir Ling Xiao. Whoosh, 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 once I met young master, I miss my life. Young master, you are the ideal of the world. Young master, this woman's eyes are drifting. I'm afraid she has other thoughts. Should I ask our man to kill her just in case? Yi Qingchan's beautiful face was gentle, and her smile was tranquil. She looked at Ling Xiao affectionately. No need. Ling Xiao shook his head and smiled. Of course, he could see the extreme hatred in Qiu Yishui's eyes. However, it was because of this that he spared her life. The sky demon had appeared and threatened to kill Ling Xiao. He had been worried that there weren't any actors to cooperate with him to put on a good show. Now that Qiu Yishui had been humiliated in front of everyone, she would definitely hold a grudge. Once they entered the secret territory, with the sky demon as the scapegoat, she would probably take the opportunity to take revenge. Of course, even if she didn't dare, Ling Xiao had a way to make her unscrupulous. You've all seen it. The sky demon does indeed have henchmen. Everything is within this young master's expectations. So, Brother Xan Xiao, you won't get lost. Annie, this cousin Ling Xiao is too domineering. Two beautiful figures appeared in the sky. The woman in red smiled faintly. However, Xinyuan Weiyang shook her head vigorously. He's too handsome, isn't he? As soon as she finished speaking, an inexplicable blush appeared on her face. Although she and Moon of Xianyuan were aunt and niece, they didn't share the same ancestor. The Xianyuan people were powerful and had many clans. However, unlike the ordinary ancient clans, they were not divided into noble and lowly. Everyone in the same generation had equal status. Only then could they unite as one and form the emperor bloodline of the human race. Otherwise, this clan would have collapsed under the oppression of the World Lord's palace and become completely desolate. Now, Aunt Lung Yu had asked her to follow Ling Xiao. She said it was training, but wasn't also intentionally trying to matchmake them. As the most talented person in the younger generation of the Xianyuan clan, Xianyuan Weiyang was gentle, but her strength was top-notch. However, on the path to immortality, talent was one thing, temperament was another. Therefore, no one in the Xianyuan people objected to Moon of Xuanyuan's decision. Moreover, if Xianyuan Weiyang could really form a good relationship with a young master of the Ling people, wouldn't it be a kind of heaven-defying fortune? The woman in red raised her eyebrows and looked at Xianyuan Weiyang meaningfully. She was originally worried that Ling Xiao's cruel and domineering behavior would scare this simple-minded girl. She didn't expect that what she was concerned about was not Ling Xiao's methods, but his heaven-defying beauty. Weiyang, you're tempted already? The woman in red sneered, but there was a deeper meaning in her eyes. This Ling Xiao was indeed peerless. Whether it was his appearance or temperament, he had the grace of a great emperor. The Xianyuan clan had been curled up in the Azure Northern Territory for 100,000 years. If they wanted to break free now, the Moon of Xianyuan and Xianyuan Weiyang were obviously not enough. Ling Xiao might be an opportunity. Of course not. Auntie, I'm just speaking the truth. Xianyuan Weiyang lowered her head. Her pretty face was embarrassed, but her tone was still extremely gentle, like a river flowing into the sea. You don't have to feel any pressure. Our bloodline and your eldest aunt's bloodline have been together for more than 10 generations. If you want to be with him, I don't think the clan will object. The woman in red hesitated for a moment, then sighed softly. However, Weiyang, I heard that Ling Xiao is already engaged. The great empress of the Celestial Dynasty is now in Rock Cliff City. Your status is more honorable than hers, but it's said that Ling Xiao is very protective of this fiancé of his. You have to be prepared. The Xianyuan clan didn't have any objections when it came to matters of the heart. If this clan was heartless, the human race would have been wiped out hundreds of thousands of years ago. It was precisely because the human emperor Xianyuan valued friendship and righteousness that he sealed the heavens with his sacred blood and fought for a chance of survival for the human race. However, Xianyuan Weiyang was too naive. At this moment, the woman in red was worried that she would be hurt by Ling Xiao. Auntie, Xianyuan Weiyang looked angry, but she didn't know how to vent her anger. She could only stomp her foot angrily and threaten softly. If you continue to tease Weiyang like this, Weiyang will return to the extreme north. Ha ha ha. Good. Weiyang is grown up and should have her own ideas. Let's go and meet this cousin of yours. The woman in red shook her head and chuckled. She grabbed Xianyuan Weiyang's lily-white hand and descended from the sky. At this moment, in the courtyard of the city, Ling Xiao was frowning slightly. Gu Chao Ci was long gone. This woman had been extremely hostile to Yi Qingchan from the beginning. However, given her personality, she shouldn't have revealed it so directly. Could it be that there was some karma between these two women that Ling Xiao didn't know about? Young master, that supreme mystic realm should be opening soon, right? Yi Qingchan turned her head and looked at the golden pillar of light that reached the sky outside the city. Her gaze was indifferent. Needless to say, Ling Xiao hadn't returned last night. He must have been at Gu Chao Ci's residence. She didn't care about this at all. However, this woman's personality was too cold, so cold that it was annoying. There should be 1 or 2 more days. Ling Xiao nodded softly and looked up into the sky. His eyes flashed with eeriness. Just then, the space began to vibrate. Then, 2 silhouettes stepped out and appeared before Ling Xiao. When he first saw the red robe, Ling Xiao saw the shadow of the moon of Xianyuan on her. She was also heroic and domineering. However, it was obvious that this woman was much younger than her mother. Beside her stood another young lady. She was wearing a white robe, and her expression was gentle. Her fairy-like face carried traces of shyness. Xuanyuan's royal family? Ling Xiao, young man, what's with the look in your eyes? Does Annie look like a bad person? The woman in red smiled faintly. She held Xianyuan Weiyang's hand and walked before Ling Xiao. Then, she looked at Yi Qing-chan meaningfully. You are. Ling Xiao raised an eyebrow. It wasn't because of the two women's stunning looks. It was because of the woman in white's fate that was as high as 15,000. Fifth realm of the exalted realm, 15,000 fate. Another person with the royal bloodline. Chapter 1014. I am Xianyuan Lungtan from the Xianyuan clan. According to seniority, you should call me Aunt. The woman in red smiled brightly and gently tugged at the girl beside her. I am Xianyuan Weiyang. Greetings, Master Ling Xiao. Xianyuan Weiyang blushed and kept her head lowered, not daring to look directly into Ling Xiao's eyes. The playful look in Ling Xiao's eyes deepened when he saw this. It was obvious that this model of the mandate of heaven had not risen gradually through trials and tribulations. She was probably born under the protection of the heavenly Tao and was accompanied by good fortune. Otherwise, given her temperament, Ling Xiao had 13,279 ways to easily kill her. Although her overly pure temperament was very cute and charming, it was completely useless on the path to immortality. Ling Xiao seemed to see some of Lin Meng's shadow in her. However, unlike Lin Meng, Xianyuan Weiyang was born in an imperial clan and was not reserved and gentle because of her inferiority complex. Perhaps her temperament had always been like this. She was soft and gentle and had a bit of a refined beauty. Why are you calling me young Master Xianyuan? Call me cousin. Xianyuan Lung Tan glared at Xianyuan Weiyang and then shook her head with a bitter smile. Ling Xiao, your mother asked me to send this girl to you to train. You have to temper her in the future. Otherwise, how can you be the empress of the Xianyuan clan? Mother? Ling Xiao's eyes turned cold, and he nodded slightly. Since mother asked me to do so, I will naturally take good care of Weiyang. Cousin. Ling Xiao had been paying attention to the news about the moon of Xianyuan. As he had expected, no one in the Xianyuan clan dared to question the moon of Xuanyuan's identity after Ling Songming personally escorted her back to the clan. In fact, even the former ruler of the Xianyuan people had voluntarily abdicated and returned the throne to the moon of Xianyuan. The human emperor's sacred blood was the strongest talent of the Xianyuan clan in the past 100,000 years. If the moon of Xianyuan had not married the Ling people and disappeared for nearly 300 years, her cultivation would not have stopped at the half-saint level. But even so, in just a few days, the former princess of Xianyuan still showed the demeanor of an empress of a generation. She broke through 3 levels in a row, and as a saint, she stepped on the ancestral road of Renhuang, ascended to the top, and proved her talent. Thus, even if there were some Xianyuan people who had some complaints, they completely shut their mouths. Of course, even if they didn't want to, Ling Xiao would help them. But now that his mother had sent this generation's princess to his side, her purpose was probably not just to gain experience. This cousin of his had a temperament as clear as water. She was as pure as ice and as pure as jade. She would be a good helper. Yes, then I'm relieved. Xianyuan Lung Ten looked meaningfully at Ling Xiao, then turned to stare at Xianyuan Weiyang. And you do your best. With that, she turned around without hesitation and walked toward the sky. Little aunt, where are you going? Xianyuan Weiyang was stunned, and a trace of panic flashed through her bright eyes. Since she was young, she had been blessed by the heavens and had supreme beauty, but she had never gone out to gain experience. Even in the Azure world, few people knew the 2 words Weiyang. Now that she was suddenly left in a strange place by Xianyuan Lung Tan, it was easy to imagine the panic in her heart. I've sent her here. Of course, I'm going back to report. Wei Yang, don't weaken the prestige of the Xinyuan Empress. Xinyuan Lung Tan's voice floated from afar, but her figure had already disappeared. Little Ant. Xinyuan Wei Yang clenched her jade-like hands, and her charming face was filled with confusion. However, at this moment, a white jade hand suddenly grabbed her hand and gently pulled her to the side. Little sister Wei Yang, don't be nervous. Young master is a very good person. With a smile on her face, Yi Qingchan comforted him softly. Boom! At this moment, at the mountain outside the city, where Lin Shun was, the golden pillar of light that originally reached the sky suddenly shattered. A ray of golden light poured down like a king's sun and instantly enveloped the tens of thousands of mountains. From afar, it looked like a divine mountain had descended from the sky, containing supreme, immortal intent. The supreme secret realm has opened? Ling Xiao furrowed his brows. According to the 100 Cliff City Lord, it would take 3 days for the boundary outside the sovereign secret realm to be completely broken. But why did the seal break on its own in just 2 days? Could it be that someone had used some method? Ling Xiao's eyes were clear, but the corner of his mouth raised into a faint smile. Although the secret realm was an opportunity for him, it was not the purpose of this trip. His real purpose was to harvest the destined ones hidden in various parts of Qinsong. Therefore, the more bizarre the matter was, the more Ling Xiao looked forward to it. Weren't the destined ones best at creating accidents? Let's go. Ling Xiao turned his head and glanced at Yi Qingchan and Xinyuan Weiyang, only to see his little cousin secretly glancing at his back. Caught off guard, she lowered her head with a red face. Buzz. Suddenly, the rock cliff city buzzed. One by one, figures rose into the air and gathered at the place where the golden light fell. At the same time, in the depths of the ancient mountain, a young girl in a golden robe with silky hair suddenly stopped and looked at the golden light above her head with determination in her eyes. If what the ancient scroll said is true, that item must be in this secret realm. The young girl's temperament was flawless, and she was graceful. Her black hair was tied up on top of her head, and she exuded an innate nobility. Especially her pair of clear eyes. There seemed to be flames burning in them, and there was an inexplicable sense of divinity. I will definitely find that divine item and protect the dynasty from being defeated. As soon as she finished speaking, she took a step forward, and there seemed to be a sea of flames behind her that contained supreme destruction. On the other side, Yang Yuan, who was dressed in white, walked hurriedly. A trace of coldness suddenly appeared on his handsome and determined face. You've been following me for so long. It's time for you to come out, right? At this time, although he did not detect any aura fluctuations, he had an inexplicable intuition that someone was following him. However, after a while, there was still no movement. He scratched his head helplessly and said with a puzzled expression, Am I really too nervous? Forget it. The secret realm has opened. I'd better find that senior's inheritance first. In the end, Yang Yuan didn't hesitate in the slightest as he strode towards the entrance of the secret realm. Only when his figure was far away did a black clothed figure appear within the ancient forest. The corners of her mouth seemed to be lifted in a pleased manner. Little guy, you still want to lie to me? Yang Yuan, you're still too inexperienced. Xiao Jiming smiled calmly, and her eyebrows were like the moon. Then, she raised her head and looked at the flickering spiritual light in the void, and a trace of seriousness finally appeared in her eyes. At this time, she could feel that the auras that gathered from all directions were vigorous and powerful, and there was no lack of existences that made her afraid. Although Yang Yuan had crushed Su Tianyue today and proved his talent, the Azure world was vast and boundless, and there were countless shocking talents. She still did not think that the former trash of the Void Dao sect could really amaze the world with a single brilliant feat, as her master said. Chapter 10:15. At the ancient mountain at the border of the Void Zone, the entire barren mountain was shrouded in divine light. It was dazzling. At the end of the divine light, there was a golden light barrier standing in the void. It was glowing and looked quite magical. At this moment, countless disciples of the ancient sects had already surrounded the barrier. However, at this moment, everyone's figures were blocked outside the realm, and their faces were filled with resentment. 3 huge figures stood quietly in front of the barrier. They looked ferocious, and their bodies were covered with terrifying black hair. The leader was a middle-aged man with a gloomy face. He was bare-chested and had a ghastly scar that almost went through his chest. There was a terrifying, demonic aura around him. He was close to the Saint Realm. He was a 9th grade venerated realm expert. The other 2 were at the 7th grade venerated realm. The 3 of them joined forces and surrounded the entrance of the secret realm. They did not allow anyone to get close. Humph! How dare the demon tribe of the extreme south act so presumptuously in the human territory? One of the ancient clans, Sky Pride, shouted. However, as soon as he finished speaking, one of the demonic figures pierced through the void and appeared in front of him. The prodigy of the ancient race was stunned. He lifted his head to look at the ferocious-looking man who was almost 2 heads taller than him. Before he could exclaim, his entire body was grabbed by the man from the demon race and torn apart. Blurg! Blood and internal organs splattered on the ground. The entire ancient forest was silent. Our young master is entering to search for treasures. Outsiders are not allowed to enter. The 9th grade venerated realm middle-aged man in front of the golden light barrier shouted coldly. There was a hint of disdain in his long and narrow eyes. The longevity ancient clan and the supreme celestial sect? If the realm lord had not suppressed the 10,000 regions by himself, the Azure world would have belonged to the 10 great demon lords. Even though the demon tribe had been banished to the extreme south zone, the world was in chaos. The realm lord had disappeared. The demon tribe should let the Azure world know who is the real master of the world. The Silver Moon Heavenly Wolf tribe. Li Jichu, the head disciple of the Daotian Academy's Confucian institution, Lin Yuan, and the others stood together with a hint of surprise in their eyes. Logically speaking, the demon tribe of the extreme south rarely stepped out of their territory. Who would have thought that such a small supreme secret realm would attract the demon tribe? The Silver Moon Heavenly Wolf was one of the 10 demon lords of the extreme south. It was cruel by nature and had no scruples, but it was also unusually united. All the forces that had offended this clan would be eaten up by the pack of wolves in the end. There had never been an accident. Moreover, now that the Realm Master had gone missing and the demon race of the extreme south had reappeared, the 10 lords must be united and not deceitful like the human race. In other words, offending the Celestial Wolf clan was equivalent to offending the entire demon race. However, why would a human clan's supreme secret realm attract the young master of the Heavenly Wolf clan? Could it be that there were other fortunes hidden in this mystic realm? Junior Sister Lee, since the Sirius clan is so overbearing, why don't you teach them a lesson at the Daotian Academy? Lin Yuan's eyes were gloomy, but there was a smile at the corner of his mouth. The Daotian Academy was the sacred ground of the human race, and its purpose was to help the world and educate people. In particular, the Confucian Academy cultivated righteousness and was supposed to eliminate violence and bring peace to the people, slay evil, and subdue demons. Upon hearing that, the surrounding prodigies nodded slightly to express their agreement. Only Li Jichu frowned slightly as if she was thinking about something. With her strength, she could easily crush an ordinary 7th-stage Exalted Realm cultivator. However, a 9th-stage Exalted Realm Sirius powerhouse was not someone Li Jichu could fight against. Moreover, the Mystic Realm had just opened. If she was injured here, she would not be able to do anything even if she entered the Mystic Realm. I can fight one of them. Who will take on the remaining 2? Li Jichu's eyes were calm as spiritual light bloomed around her. Even if she was worried at this moment, she did not want to weaken the Academy's prestige and go against her Dao heart. Hey! Just as everyone was silent, a strange laughter suddenly came from the void in the distance. 2 figures descended from the sky and landed in front of the crowd. They were two young men in armor and holding battle swords. They had a long face and small eyes. They looked cunning, but their auras were not weak. My name is Nyo Shengshi. I'm the brightest here. My name is Man Yobi. I'm the best in Qing Song. He. The two of us are here on the orders of the demon-slaying hall to slay a demon in the void domain. Everyone, please show us your identity badges and cooperate with our work. I suspect that the demon is hiding among you. The two figures descended from the sky with a smug smile. They glanced at the prodigies on the mountain and held a sword in one hand while patting the other hand gently. The demon-slaying hall, one of the 7 halls under the Realm Lord. Everyone's expression changed when they heard what the two of them said. However, their eyes were filled with a complicated look. What the hell are these two? Nyoma? However, their auras were not weak, and they had the backing of the Realm Lord Hall. Hence, no one dared to underestimate them. So, they're disciples of the demon-slaying hall. Li Jichu's face was cold. She looked up at the 3 Demon Clan experts and said, "The Demon Clan is overbearing. Is the demon-slaying hall not going to do anything about it?" The Demon Clan? Where's the Demon Clan? How dare you? Nyoma and Nyoma looked at each other before turning to look at the 3 Demon Clan experts. However, when they sensed their auras, the ferocious look on their faces froze. Humph, the demon-slaying hall only slays demons. The Demon Clan is not under our control. Humph. The 3 Demon Clan experts smiled arrogantly when they saw that the two of them were avoiding their eyes. There were 7 hall masters under the Realm Lord. Each of them was terrifying. However, there were 10 demon lords in the southernmost region. In terms of background, they were more powerful. Now that the Realm Lord was missing, the Realm Lord Hall was much more restrained and did not dare to offend the Demon Clan. You don't know what's good for you. The 3 Demon Clan experts were filled with killing intent. When they saw Li Jichu's angry expression, the 2 Demon Clan experts at the 7th level of the Venerable Realm stepped forward and pounced on her from the left and right. Boom! Endless demon aura swept across the area. The smell of blood filled the ancient forest and shook the sky. At this time, even Lin Yuan's eyes flashed with a hint of hesitation. In the end, he did not dare to take a step forward. Instead, he quietly retreated a little. This sovereign secret realm had obviously been forcefully opened by the Sirius clan. Now that the young lord of the Sirius clan was not here, even if he killed the 3 who were blocking his way, he would probably be hated by this clan. Even the demon-slaying hall did not want to offend them. How could Lin Yuan dare to take action? Li Jichu's face turned pale when she saw the 2 Demon Clan experts approaching her. She held the ancient sword in her hand and slashed it down. A vast spiritual power bloomed in the sky and shattered the void. A ray of sword light turned into a sun. It fell like the Milky Way and enveloped the 2 Demon Clan experts. Boom! However, just as everyone was looking forward to it, 2 pitch-black claws suddenly reached out from the sword light. They instantly shattered the sword light and pressed down on Li Jichu's head. Oh no! Li Jichu's face turned cold. Her beautiful eyes darkened. Just as she was about to retreat, she heard a sword hum above her head. Buzz! Chapter 10:16. Buzz! An ear-piercing sword hum resounded through the sky, and the great Tao's holy will descended. A wisp of dense light flashed past, and a heavenly wolf clan expert who had reached out to grab Li Jichu suddenly felt a sharp pain in his wrist. His 2 claws were neatly broken and fell to the ground. Roar! A painful roar was immediately heard. Everyone raised their heads in shock and looked at the place where the clear light was blooming. Even Li Jichu's pretty face had a hint of surprise. She raised her eyes and looked into the distance, only to see a black-clothed figure slowly walking over. His celestial face was cold, and his temperament was cold. Under his feet, doubt laws meandered into a river. It was like a sea of stars, and it made his figure look even stronger. He held an ancient green sword in his hand. He looked down at everyone with his deep eyes, and there seemed to be a hint of anger between his brows. With a 3-foot-long sword in hand, who in the world couldn't he kill? Everyone thought that it was just a drunken boast, but today they seemed to understand. Why could someone who cultivated the sword soar into the heavens and kill immortals and gods? Some people who cultivated the sword could not sever karma, even if they cultivated the sword. It turned out that it was because of this sword force. Invincible sword force. Lord Ling Xiao. Li Jichu's Dao heart trembled, and a smile appeared on her face. She had seen through the hearts of people on the path of immortality today. Every man for himself, and the heavens and earth would destroy him. The actions of Lin Yuan and the others just now were really chilling. Just 3 subordinates of the young master of the Heavenly Wolf clan had completely intimidated the disciples of the ancient clans and immortal sections. It was no wonder that after Xin Yuan became the human emperor, the human race had declined and no longer had luck. They were selfish and did everything for themselves. Why did they have to compete with other clans? Only the Lord Ling Xiao had a righteous heart and dared to be the first in the world. So the young master is here. Let's see how the Heavenly Wolf clan can be arrogant now. The crowd that had been silent like cicadas in winter suddenly revealed a rude and unreasonable expression. As for the ox and the horse, their eyes flickered with a hint of fear as they sneered. So it's the Ling people's young master. If young master had come a moment later, the 2 of us would have killed these 3 stupid demons. Oh, Ling Xiao raised his eyebrows slightly, especially when he saw the arrogance and pride on the faces of the ox and the horse. The corners of his mouth curled up into a faint smile. Now, it seemed that this supreme secret realm was more complicated and mysterious than he had imagined. Based on the character of these 2 people, if they couldn't attract 2 or 3 chosen one to slap their faces, it would be a waste of the pretentious light in their small eyes. Ling people. The 3 Welkin Wolf clansmen glanced at each other, and their eyes suddenly flashed with a wisp of fierceness. The young master had instructed that no one was allowed to take even half a step into the mystic realm. Even if the young master of the Realm Lord Palace personally came today, they would not dare to retreat. Roar! The 3 demons roared instantly, and a demonic light bloomed around the 3 demons. In particular, the great demon of the 9th stage of the Venerable Realm took the lead and charged towards Ling Xiao angrily. Seeing this, Ling Xiao did not panic at all. Instead, he said coldly, "This is the human territory. It's not your place to commit crimes. As long as I'm here, the human race will not be humiliated by you." As soon as he finished speaking, he suddenly took a step forward and slashed down with the ancient sword in his hand. Like a shocking immortal light, it shone on everyone's faces and even shot into Li Jichu's heart. How righteous, how domineering, compared to the descendants of the ancient clans and celestial sects who only knew how to show off. Although the young master was also domineering and cruel, he cared about the entire human race. F*CK. Kill. Hearing this, a trace of battle intent rose on the faces of the ancient clan's sky prides who were originally hesitant. They felt their blood boil as they took out their spiritual treasures and smashed them towards the 3 demons. Boom, boom, boom. Instantly, the void trembled and the barren mountain shattered. Even though the 3 demons had terrifying cultivation levels and powerful physical bodies, they were still instantly killed by the countless spiritual treasures. From the beginning to the end, Ling Xiao's expression did not change in the slightest. This was the human heart. They feared the strong and coveted fame. With the strength of the people in front of them, the 3 venerable realm demonic beasts were not a threat at all. However, once a chaotic battle broke out, someone was bound to die. Moreover, with the threat of the sky demon around, no one dared to easily expose their trump cards and become a stepping stone for others on the path to immortality. On the other hand, Li Jichu lived up to her name as the first disciple of the Confucian Institute. She cultivated righteousness and behaved in a righteous manner. It was also because of this that Ling Xiao acted so generous and righteous in front of her. To put it bluntly, Righteousness meant that one's Taoist heart would not have a trace of darkness. Therefore, these disciples of the Confucian Institute were all righteous and cared about the common people. Don't you think it's a coincidence, stinky sister? I'm such a person too. This made her feel a sense of identity, which was why she lost her mind and body. A woman with 2,000 providence points was not tempting to Ling Xiao at all. However, she was the first disciple of the Confucian Institute, and there was the remains of the sky demon in the Daotian Academy. With this woman leading the way, wouldn't it be twice the result with half the effort? Only when Ling Xiao's figure descended from the sky did Yi Qing-chan and Xianyuan Weiyang appear and stand behind him. "Greetings, young master." Everyone bowed, except for the ox and the horse. They looked arrogant, as if they were proud of their status, but the fear in their eyes could not be completely concealed. "It seems that we are not the most powerful in Qing Tsang." Ling Xiao nodded slightly with a gentle smile. He glanced at the people in front of him and did not see any valuable prey. "All right, since the secret realm is open, let's go in and search for treasures. Be careful." As soon as he finished speaking, Ling Xiao took the lead and strode towards the golden light barrier. The Silver Moon Wolf was one of the 10 demon lords of Qingtsang. The young master of this clan traveled hundreds of millions of miles to search for treasures. Gu Chaoxiai once said that this secret realm should be the place where a powerhouse of the reincarnation heavenly abode died. Didn't that mean that it was very likely a member of the Welkin Wolf clan that killed him all those years ago? Or perhaps the two of them had perished here together? Interesting. If not for the fact that there were so many geniuses here, Ling Xiao would naturally capture that demon and search his soul to find out the truth. But now, he could only look for the heavenly wolf young master. Boom! Ling Xiao reached out and held the hands of Yi Qing-chan and Xianyuan Weiyang. She was stunned for a moment, and a blush appeared on her face. She instinctively wanted to struggle, but the void in front of her changed, and she felt a little dizzy. She immediately clenched her jade-like hands and allowed Ling Xiao to lead her into the secret territory. Boom! The three of them landed on the ground, but their expressions suddenly froze. At this moment, the world under the golden light boundary was not the holy land of the immortals that everyone had imagined. On the contrary, endless death auras spread out, covering the sky and swallowing everything. There was an extremely gloomy and evil fluctuation quietly rippling from the mountain forest in the distance. The mountains were barren, and the ancient trees were withered. Endless miasma rose, and strange roars filled the air. Ling Xiao's eyes narrowed, and he understood the reason in an instant. When the ancestor of the Foliaceae had died, a drop of sovereign blood had almost destroyed the entire heavenly wood territory. Now, in this territory, it was very likely that 2 heavenly sovereigns had died at the same time. The corpse blood aura was terrifying to think about. "Sir, is this really the supreme secret realm? Why does it feel like the underworld?" Yi Qing-chan pursed her red lips, and her delicate body was cold. With her current cultivation level, she was not even comparable to Xianyuan Weiyang. How could she resist the evil corpse aura? Big Sister Qing-chan, keep this item with you. You're tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.